Oh, yeah, it wasn't close at all.
Tonight's meeting of the Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County Council is coming to you live from the council chambers at the historic Metro Courthouse. It's a public affairs presentation of the Metro Nashville Network. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Nolan, your announcer for this program. Tonight, the 15th Metropolitan Council holds its 85th business meeting of a 4-year term. This is the 6th council meeting of 2023. Tonight's council agenda is 33 pages long, containing 85 items. It includes a public comment period, 24 resolutions, 10 bills on first reading, 17 second reading measures, and 28 ordinances on third and final reading. The council will also consider 4 appointments by Mayor John Cooper to Metro Boards of Commissions. 3 are to the Metro Arts Commission. The other is to the Metro Historical Commission. Those confirmed will serve multi-year terms as unpaid volunteers. Tonight marks the first scheduled Metro Council meeting since the Tennessee General Assembly approved and Governor Bill Lee quickly signed into law a bill that cuts this 40-member body in half to no more than 20 members. Last week, the Metro Legal Department filed a lawsuit to try to stop or slow down the new law. There could be a court hearing very soon, in fact, perhaps on April 4th, with Metro asking for an injunction to pause or void the new measure. In the meantime, with the new law setting very tight deadlines to draw the new council districts and prepare for the already scheduled August council elections, Vice Mayor Jim Shulman called an informational session last Thursday night to get briefings to the council meetings from city legal, planning, and election officials on where things stand and answer the council's questions. That process will continue tonight with several of the same officials present to make presentations again and answer more questions from council members. No action was taken Thursday night, and no action is expected to be taken tonight. Council will hold a special meeting tomorrow night here in this chamber to vote on possible legislation, including instructing city planners on how to proceed on redrawing the lines in terms of how many district seats and at-large seats would make up the new 20-member council. One resolution already filed is that breaks down to 17 districts and 3 at-large, but there are also several amendments with different numbers that have been filed. One even sets up 16 districts with 4 super council districts, which each selected to represent one of 4 quadrants set up in the city. Others would put it at 15 district members and 5 at large. Others would put it to all 20 being district members. So the council will bring those up once they get some instruction, once they decide tonight which one they want to, tomorrow night what they want to do. If they do decide, then the Planning Commission will do that and get it back here to the council to take action no later than April 8th to stay in line with the deadline set up in the state law. Under the new law, city planners must have that redistricting plan back to the council, as I said, to act on by April the 8th. The council approves the plan, then election officials must rework the precinct lines and voting places by May 1st so candidates can begin to qualify to run before May 18th. Those qualifying petitions just became available in the last few days. Almost any delay in this process, including an injunction by the courts, would likely mean there would be no council election this summer, and the present council would stay in office for a 5th year to continue to try to work out the reduced size of the council, redrawing the lines, etc. The election for mayor and vice mayor are not impacted by this. They will be held as scheduled on the first Thursday in March as scheduled. There are concerns about a 5th year for the council in terms of what that might expose the city to and the council to in terms of their actions being considered to be legal. Given this fluid and uncertain situation, there's a chance other special meetings or informational sessions will be held. As far as the rest of tonight's agenda is concerned, the council will again consider RS 2023-2037, appropriating a total of $1 million for a grant from the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. The funds will be used for community safety grants to fund local nonprofits. At the last meeting, the bill was deferred because there were questions about the wording of the contract with the Urban League. There have also been concerns raised in the past about some of the nonprofits receiving these funds. There is a substitute being presented, including a rewrite of the Urban League contract. It appears this is on set now, on pace to be able to pass tonight. Increased efforts to restore and maintain the city's tree canopy were withdrawn at the last meeting due to opposition from some development groups, particularly up in the legislature. RS 2023-2063 would extend the funding mechanism for the existing tree law, including grants to several nonprofits helping in this area. Under RS 2023-2071, the council would accept a $15,000 grant from the Titans Foundation. The grant will provide equipment, resources, and upgrades to the computer lab at the Luby Community Center. By the way, there's nothing on the agenda tonight that concerns the Titans' $2.1 billion roof stadium. That's to be considered on second reading at the next regular council meeting, which is scheduled for April 4th. RS 2023-2027 is an application for a $5 million federal grant to aid the community outreach, planning, and design of the East Bank Boulevard and Greenway project. Metro would need to match that with another $5 million. Since this is related to the stadium project in some way, this could be deferred, as other related legislation has been, until the council makes a final decision about the Titans project. Under memorializing resolutions, the council will recognize Lorenzo Washington's efforts and contributions to preserve the music legacies of North Nashville and historic Jefferson Street. Body will also recognize the opening of the Salvadorian Consulate General's office and welcome the Consulate General of El Salvador to Nashville, as well as recognize the contributions of Delta Sigma Theta to public service and designating March 3 as Delta Day in Nashville and Davidson County. Finally, the Council will also consider a resolution supporting Earth Hour 2023 on Saturday, March 25th, 2023. That would run from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Under second reading bills, the Council will also consider BL 2023-1740. The bill amends a local law to make it unlawful to discharge any firearm within the Urban Services District at any time and within the General Services District until the nighttime. Nighttime is defined in the bill as a period of time 30 minutes after dusk and 30 minutes prior to sunrise. There are exceptions to this rule, including the allowance of discharge of a firearm while in the lawful performance of a duty as an officer of the law within a legally established shooting range or a shooting gallery where precautions have been taken to ensure the protection of human life and property, while lawfully engaged in hunting is permitted by the state upon any property located within the Urban Services District or the Metropolitan Government, and 4, while legally defending personal property. The ordinance also prohibits the discharge of a weapon in the General Services District within 500 feet of an occupied residential structure. The exception would be added to allow for the discharging of a weapon within 500 feet of an occupied residential structure with prior permission of the owner and the owner of the property and the owner of the structure as well. The exception will be made for when the discharge is expressly authorized or it is permitted by state law, which may mean one reason they're not going to see quite as much controversy about this. BL 2023-1741 on second reading would establish the creation of a public dashboard on how the city is addressing the issue of housing affordability. This would include when affordable housing units are funded, their completion status, and when affordability restrictions expire. The Housing Division of the Planning Department would also track the number of subsidized homeowner-occupied units preserved through home rehabilitation and improvement projects on an annual basis. On third and final reading bills, the Council will again seek to decide how many unrelated persons can live in one dwelling. The current law says 3, but the Council debated going to higher numbers, but deferred the matter 2 meetings for more study. There are several more amendments being drafted tonight, including a complete substitute bill. We believe that has probably worked this out at this point. We're hearing from some council members. This looks like it will get enough support tonight to pass the bill on third and final reading. Finally, at the heel of tonight's agenda, the Council will consider an indefinite deferral of BL 2023-1631. This is one of 2 competing measures to set up either a Nashville Entertainment Commission or a somewhat similar commission dealing with the aspects of the city's TV, movie, and other related businesses. The Council has been hoping that sponsors of these 2 bills would find a common ground for a single bill. That had not happened, although it appears by tonight it has been. This is an appeal by one of the bills to ask for this bill to be put back on the agenda, to take it no longer be indefinitely deferred. There is a substitute bill about this tonight. What would happen parliamentary is the Council would have to agree to indefinitely defer it. That would take a simple majority on a voice vote, and it could go to the board as well, the tote board, to see what happens on that. If that's what happens, the bill would go back on the Council's agenda in 2 weeks. It's on second reading, and we'd see what happens from there, and that's when the substitute would be put in. And again, if Kumbaya hasn't been sung on this in pieces at hand, it would appear the bill would pass on second reading in 2 weeks, and then we'll see if it goes on from there from third reading. If you want to follow tonight's council meeting as it progresses, you can find the agenda and a staff analysis online. Just go to the Metro Council portion of the Nashville.gov website, then onto the Legislative Information Center. We'll also be placing the bill numbers on the screen when they come up for consideration, so you can follow along and keep up with where we are on tonight's meeting agenda. Let's go now to Vice Mayor Jim Shulman. He'll be gathering tonight's council meeting into order shortly.
Okay, have at it. 3 times.
9, right?
Yeah.
9.
Good work. Will the meeting please come to order? We welcome you to the Metro Council. Today is Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. Will all members of the council, as well as the public, please rise for the invocation, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Invocation tonight is brought to us by Pastor Ronnie Mitchell of the New Livingstone Church, a guest of Councilmember Berkeley Allen.
Let us bow our heads. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who had been better to us than we've been to ourselves, here we are again, suspended between the eternities. And as a disclaimer, God, we need to confess there are things you told us to do that we've not done yet. And then there are things you told us not to do that we've done anyway. And in the midst of all of that, our story is your glory. We remain in awe of the places where we have found you, whether we were looking for you or not, and how that in spite of our personal failures, we still have a calling on our lives. We thank you, O Lord, for being a God who is in the details, whether it be addiction or any other broken part of our life, disease, depression, or loneliness. You continue to be there for us and with us. We invoke your name. We ask that you come and be in our presence. And as this assembly of decision makers, known as the Metro Council, gathers, our prayer is that you would guide our minds and regulate our thoughts. And in the midst of the difficulties that we face, remind us that hope is waiting on the other side. There are times that we go to bed at night, perched on top of the world, only to wake up and find that the world is now on top of us. So teach us to number our days, that our hearts may be applied unto wisdom. And lest these folk get nervous because there's a Baptist preacher praying, we close this prayer by saying, thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, Pastor Mitchell. The banger of the gavel tonight is a guest from Northern Ireland, Miss Nicole Smith. She goes to Cirque, which is a university in Northern Ireland. We have a number of folks back here from Northern Ireland that will be recognized in just a little while, but Nicole was nice enough to come up and bang the gavel for us, so please make her feel welcome. All right. Without objection, we will suspend the calling the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of those members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for adoption of the minutes of the meeting from March 7th, 2023? Motion properly seconded. Without objection, the minutes of the meeting will stand approved as written. Mr. Clerk, any messages from the mayor?
There are no messages from the mayor.
All right. A couple things to note for tonight. As you know, we will be hearing in just a little while from representatives of the planning department to further continue our discussions regarding Chapter 21 of the Public Acts of 2023, to actually address a resolution that has been filed on the subject along with a series of substitute resolutions. A special meeting has been called for tomorrow night beginning at 6:30 p.m. Planning and Zoning Committee will be meeting also in a specially called meeting, and that committee meets at 5:30 p.m., correct? Is it 4:30? Okay, 4:30, I'm sorry. 4:30 p.m. tomorrow night. couple of other things. Our own council members, Sawara and Sepulveda, presented very well last night at a program acknowledging women in Metro as part of Metro's celebration of its 60th birthday. I believe you will find a flyer on your desk with information about celebrating Metro's 60th birthday. It is on Saturday, April the 1st, 2023, from 1 to 4 p.m. It's in the afternoon. It will be located on the public square. That's the activities, and it's all free. So mark that on your calendar. You'll want to go to that. As I typically say at all these meetings since the start of the war in Ukraine, please remember the people of that country, but also remember as well people around the world, including here in this country, that are truly in need. We have a number of people in the back, I believe all wearing red, and I am going to recognize Councilmember Hurt. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. We welcome the illustrious members of the Nashville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for their inaugural Delta Day at the Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County Council. The members of the Nashville Alumni Chapter, under the leadership of Jackie Johnson, who's their president, are advancing their efforts in social action by continuing their engagement in local legislation. Through this effort, which was organized by their chair of social action, Vivian Wilhort, and co-chair Dorinda Carter. This is the first time that their chapter has celebrated a day at Metro Council. It is with even greater enthusiasm that the Nashville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta announces their intent for this celebration to be an annual event as Delta Day at Metro Council. Furthermore, we will move legislation later tonight that joins a national movement of Deltas passing March 3rd of each year to be recognized as Delta Day across this country. I ask that you, my colleagues, stand to your feet, celebrate my beautiful sorors of the Nashville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, and they will return and join other local chapters of Deltas for a formal presentation of that legislation. Please give them a hand.
Thank you, Councilmember Hurt, for that rousing introduction of those nice women in the back. All right, we are going to recognize two groups tonight. At the request of some council members, we are going to start a trial run tonight with a group that is sort of representing this community, but also the Metro Arts Commission. And so we have said that we are going to showcase talent in our community. And so we have a group tonight that's going to provide us with a short performance. And we're going to try and see how this works, but we haven't done this before. But ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, if you would, we are going to have some entertainment at the beginning of this meeting. I am proud to present SRAP, Rashad the Poet, and the Varsity, and they are going to perform in the back. Please make them welcome.
All right, check, how y'all doing today? Perfect, so I'm SRAP.
Rashad the Poet.
This is our brother Adrian Taylor. Happy birthday, Adrian.
Happy birthday.
He's with the Varsity, and we just want to give y'all some encouraging words. So, now the big thing is we love being able to give you a little something to anchor on in your mind, right? So we came up with something special for y'all. How's it go, Rashad?
Stay on the path. Make the way. Yeah.
Stay on the path. Make the way. Yeah. Stay on the path. Make the way. The power's in your hand every day. Stay on the path, make your way. The power's in your hand every day. Now I know there are moments when you walk into work and you think that you're just listening, and all of a sudden the world starts to sound like wah, 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 wah. But don't stay down, Charlie Brown, because Lucy will always be there to try to rob you of your field goal. But all you have to do is just kick that opportunity through the upright posts, and there is the easiest way to score. And don't be devoured by anything, because pain and aggression will always shower darkness, but the light is inside of you, and it resides just like a prism. That means it's crystallized, so when light shines, it reflects everywhere and blinds. It's not a prison, but these bars are free, so you can take these home. And if you need this, understand that your life is like a globe. It keeps spinning, but with your energy, with your passion and purpose, and that is the way that you keep going, and the way that this energy keeps flowing and flowing and flowing.
It's flowing, going like a new day, a new dawn, sprung into a new day. Today, the 21st, a good day to say, hey, even though sometimes the weather in Nashville don't act right, we still okay. Waiting for that sun to shine through, shining like a beautiful red thing, you know, DST. This be the season C for us to come and shine bright next to you. It's opportunity in the oppression. It's opportunity. There's a blessing for you to look towards the skies and see the sun. It shines bright. Sometimes you gotta take those tests that come along with the vision, but you gotta keep your feet on the ground and stay on the mission. No need to stop now. The people are looking and waiting and hoping for you to keep doing exactly what you are here to do. So know that it's not in vain. It's a lot of little kids who walking around and saying the same thing, just hoping for a brighter day. And you give them that brighter day each and every day that you come in here and say, stay on the path, make the way. The power's in your hands every day. Stay on the path, make the way. The power's in your hands every day. Stay on the path, make the way. The power's in your hands every day, every day, every day, every day.
Your hands every day. Start today.
Thank you. We may need you to come back tomorrow night. All right. Last but not least, we, as you met Nicole before, we have a number of visiting dignitaries from Northern Ireland. They mainly are students. They are musical students that have been visiting Nashville for the last couple of weeks and performing all over town. The heads of their delegation is Bruce McClements and Phil Parker. They are leading this delegation. If you all will stand, all the folks from Northern Ireland, so you can be properly recognized, that would be great. Thank you. And because they are of musical talents, Gila Gregg will be representing them in song. She's right in the back. She's setting up with a guitar, and she's going to sing for us.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to sing a song called Heads Up. We're the one to save me, but you left me broken. You didn't understand me. Now I'm stranded in my head. No heads up, no goodbye. No sorry, it's not working. But I know I'll be okay. But I know I'll be okay. I was so distracted, couldn't find my way, till you came and found a light I couldn't see. But you left so suddenly. No heads up, no goodbye. No sorry. sorry it's not working, but I know I'll be okay. But I know I'll be okay. I will come back much stronger. I will be who I want to be. No more pain in silence. No heads up, no goodbye. No sorry, it's not working. But I know I'll be okay. But I know I'll be okay.
Sheila, we may need for you to come back tomorrow as well. Okay. Representative Stiles, Councilmember Stiles, for what purpose?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Very quickly, the Southeast Easter egg hunt is this Saturday at Southeast Community Center from 10 to 2. So if you all would love to come out and stop by, there are going to be lots of prizes, music, games, and fun. I also wanted to let people know we were scheduled to do the reveal of 3 renderings tomorrow for the Global Mall. That is being rescheduled. It is going to get pushed back to next Wednesday, March 29th at 6:30 at the Southeast Community Center at 6:30 p.m. So once again, that is canceled for tomorrow and will be March 29th at 6:30 at the Southeast Community Center. Thank you.
All right. And one last thing. I know it's election season, and we do allow candidates to come and present themselves, just to announce. Anybody in the back wishes to come forward and do that at this point? If not, that's fine. Just giving them options. All right. We are ready to proceed then with a report from the Rules Committee. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized. Councilmember Murphy.
I just wanted to show off how well I'm walking without my cane.
Can you sing?
I don't think that would be appropriate at this time. So moving on to elections and confirmation, we have 3 appointments to the Art Commission. We have Mr. Derek Bell for a term expiring on January 1, 2027. Ms. Leah Dupree-Love expiring on January 1, 2027. And appointment of Chancellor Carol McCoy for a term expiring on February 24th, 2026. And I did want to acknowledge that the Reverend Harold Love did come down to support his wife, and I thought that was mighty sweet of him. So all of those were approved, 5 in favor, 0 against. And then we also had the Historic Commission appointment of Dr. Celso Thomas Castro, and that has been withdrawn.
Okay. So we have 3 appointments to confirm tonight. Derek Bell, Ms. Leah Love, and former Judge Carol McCoy for positions all with the Arts Commission. Got a motion from Councilmember Murphy to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we are ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. If you would, when I call your name, please stand and remain standing. Derek Bell. Leah Love. I see that Representative Harold Love stood up at the same time. And former Judge Carol McCoy, if you all would stand up and be properly recognized, thank you for agreeing to serve. All right, we will move on. The next part is the public comment period, where we give times for members of the public to who have registered in advance to speak. No one registered for tonight, so we will move on. It is now time for members of the planning department staff. We had asked them to come tonight. They were here last Thursday. and we asked them to come tonight, and they will be here tomorrow to talk about Chapter 21 of the Public Acts of 2023. They did an excellent presentation last Thursday. If you've not had a chance to watch it because you were not able to attend last week, please make sure you take a look at it before you come tomorrow. But we asked the Planning Department staff to come back tonight to give a shorter presentation, but also to answer any questions that people still have as we go into tomorrow night's special meeting. Representative Love, thank you for being here. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Property Assessor Vivian Wilhoit, thank you for being here.
Yes, and I'd like to say we are the only Greek organization ever come to the Metro Council. You'll see us soon again. Thank you.
That's why we have the microphone turned off in the back. Okay. All right. So anyway, the Planning Department staff. Is going to make a presentation tonight. It's going to be shorter, but again, any questions that you have, let's get them addressed tonight, and then they will be back tomorrow. I will also indicate that Mr. Jeff Roberts is back in the back as well with the Election Commission, so he is here. If anybody has any questions for Mr. Roberts, we will proceed in that direction. Ms. Kemp, do you want to do the presentation from right here, or would you like to come up here? What's better? Mr. Claxton? Okay, I'm going to turn on your microphone. Any questions before we get started? Okay, at the end, at some point I will come back to Councilmember Withers, who can talk more about the meeting tomorrow night for planning and zoning. All right, Mr. Claxton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Members of Council, I'm going to do a brief refresh from what we presented last week and then a look ahead to the coming week. As a reminder, our analysis of this bill is based on our redistricting criteria and how we anticipate relying on these criteria and what it might mean for the choice before you tomorrow night in terms of the number of council districts and the number of at-large members. This slide shows the redistricting criteria that we use and their source in the Metro Charter, state law, federal law, and just traditional best practices. As a reminder, no map perfectly balances all of these criteria. They push and pull districts in different directions. A video of our presentation from last week is available online. That is a much more detailed view of what I'm going to highlight right now. As a reminder, our analysis of the Voting Rights Act is very situation specific to the number of districts, the geography, at-large performance in different configurations, and the public's voting patterns. The analysis we presented last week concentrated on the district-level performance of two areas, what we called North Nashville and north of the river, and southeast in Antioch. All three district sizes considered that we looked at last week can support continued African-American proportional representation. However, a 5 and 15 configuration gives the broadest pathway to maintaining representation in our analysis. Looking at incumbency, keeping all incumbents separate is not feasible at any district configuration. Therefore, our approach to incumbency focuses on the underlying communities. And then we also wanted to let everyone know that last week and this week we have met with 45 council members and candidates. We reviewed the findings from the analysis that we presented last week at about this level of detail, and then looked at the communities within each district and nearby each district to discuss what those communities have in common and what their shared stake in the future is for us to think about as we begin the process of looking at district boundaries. As we begin looking to prepare draft maps, we are already struggling to think across the different configurations in light of the different comments that we have received. Looking ahead, there is the special called meeting tomorrow night. Following on that, we anticipate preparing draft maps, what we are calling version A, similar to the 2021 cycle. As we prepare the drafts, we will give council members a heads up if it looks like we'll need to make tough choices about your districts. We don't want anyone to be surprised, but this is a very fast-moving process. We anticipate releasing draft maps March 24th or 25th, this Friday or Saturday. And then we begin the community engagement process. There will be an online interactive map for the public to post comments on the boundaries and see the comments that others have posted. And then we are planning community meetings next week where attendees can come talk with planning staff, get a sense of the overall map, and then work with mapping staff to adjust district boundaries and see the effect of those changes on population balance. This is similar to the process that we used in the last cycle that helped us understand kind of what the community was seeking in assessing the boundaries and the public to understand kind of the context that we work within and how the math moves. This is our meeting schedule for next week. We have booked time at Hadley Park Community Center on Monday, Sunny West and Planning Offices on Tuesday, Southeast Community Center on Wednesday, and at the Madison Library on Thursday. Our thinking here is to have 2 central locations, a north location and a south location. We will be posting these times to our website. We're working on nailing down the exact start time because the start time's finished, but generally we are looking late morning, early afternoon until 7:30 or 8 at night. The Vice Mayor has asked us to keep in mind the potential for a special called council meeting Friday, March 31st at your discretion. And then we are planning for a second draft review, version B, as potentially April 3rd, Monday, to be reviewed at planning offices Monday and Tuesday as we approach the end of our 30-day period for the commission to recommend boundaries. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Before we take questions on that, I think it's probably appropriate to call on Wally Dietz, Metro Legal Director. And Mr. Dietz, if you don't mind, if you could give everyone kind of an update just in terms of the hearing, that would be helpful.
Mr. Vice Mayor, yes, since we were here last Thursday night, the court has entered a scheduling order. The hearing on our motion for a temporary injunction will be on the morning of April 4th. It will be a video conference and the hearing will last 2 hours. It should be a public feed if you want to follow it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dietz. All right. So questions. Go ahead and just hit your buttons if you don't mind. And we have a number of people here to answer questions. So Councilmember Withers, I saw your hand go up first, and then I'll go to Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Withers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor. Just want to, as the Planning and Zoning Committee Chair, just wanted to run through a couple of questions, and maybe that might also address things that other colleagues might want to ask. First of all, I want to thank all my council colleagues for your attention to this matter so far and for helping to get word out to constituents, and particularly to follow the redistrict.nashville.gov website, which is the best place to find the latest information. So we do have a special called committee meeting tomorrow. As the chair of the meeting, I do intend to recognize all council members who are present for our discussion. Really want to encourage folks to be here at 4:30 if you can, so that we can have a good discussion. Right now, I think there are 4 options that we have for potential amendments to the resolution, so that way we can go through those. Then when the special called meeting of the council itself meets at 6:30, hopefully we can be very close to having an up or down vote on the resolution and the amendments at that time. So please try to attend at 4:30 if you can. And I guess a question that I might like to pose, if I may, to Director Kemp, or to Mr. Claxton, whichever of the two would best like to answer. But if, for whatever reason, we do not have a quorum tomorrow of the council, how will the planning department staff proceed?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for the question. And I watched the proceedings last week from Utah, and I really appreciated the thoughtful questions and Greg's work as well on this. First, it is our strong preference to get guidance from council on Wednesday. We seek your guidance as to the number and configuration of districts. Absent such guidance to your question, I would expect the following. Given that the state has given us a task to complete in 30 days without an out, we have been given direction to produce maps. And given that we value public input and would like the public to have as much time as possible to consume that information and give us feedback that we might reflect in subsequent maps, I would anticipate the release of a draft map for public review on Saturday or Friday, as Greg noted. We prefer one configuration from an engagement perspective, and I'm happy to speak a little more to that. I can appreciate why you might want to look at several. I want to offer some thoughts about the public process and what that might look like. We will, of course, undertake this work in consultation with our attorneys, but absent any guidance from council for any reason, if there's not a quorum or what have you, then I would rely on the analysis that the staff has given regarding what configuration best meets or has the greatest chance of meeting the criteria. I would prefer to have guidance from this body, but if I don't have it, I would anticipate relying on what I've heard from Mr. Claxton, and all of you have heard his assessment as well. Of course, if council were to subsequently come back at another special called meeting and give us updated guidance or redirect us, then we would absolutely honor that if we get within that 30 days window that the planning department is working in.
Thank you for that. And Director Kipp, perhaps since we do have several options, a lot of times we make a recommendation on each of the amendment proposals to our resolution, so we don't necessarily kill bills or amendments in our committees in the Metro Council, and so it's likely that we would have a different recommendation for each, but they would each have a recommendation for the different proposals that we have. If we were to send a recommendation that has several different alternatives, how would planning staff work with that, or how would that help or hinder the public engagement process?
Sure. Thank you for asking. Perhaps y'all remember the work that we did in 2021. Some of you may have come to one of the public work sessions, if you will. It's a unique interactive process. So we have planners stationed with computers and invite members of the public to sit with us and test their theories. Often we'll have someone come and say, why did you knuckleheads put the line here and not here? And we'll move the line where they want and then go over with them the impact on the population and other criteria. And it's really the very best way of helping to show members of the public how challenging it is to meet all of the criteria. If we overwhelm folks with 4 maps, 3 maps, I think that would really undermine the productivity of that discussion, because we're putting so much on the table and asking for feedback and what's already a data-driven kind of analytical process where you're sitting and trying to move work around. You all have sat with us and you know yourselves what that feels like. That's why it is our preference to work with one configuration during this week. I can appreciate why you might want 2 or more for your own decisions. I would just say that I think we would impact sort of the quality of the public engagement and feedback if you just think back to what those sessions felt like sitting with us and working with the lines.
Thank you, George. One, I think, additional question for now is you referenced the work that we did in 2021. That was one of my first tasks that I got to do as the planning committee chair, was to work with planning department staff as well as all of my colleagues here on that. Does the planning department staff feel as though that voluminous public comment that we received, much of which is still recorded in writing, is it the opinion of the department that that information is still fresh and relevant, or how useful will that information be in guiding working with maps and communities?
Very useful. I am the only silver lining here, and there's no real silver lining, but that Greg and his team have brought expertise and a long memory of conversations that they've had, the thoughtfulness that he is bringing and the team is bringing to try to be respectful of those conversations while knowing that we're not going to be able to make everyone happy. In fact, we're going to upset a lot of folks with these maps. But knowing that he is bringing that perspective, I think, is invaluable, and that is born from the 2021 experience.
Thank you, Director Kemp. My next question might be more of one for Metro Legal. At least one, I think one, and I think two, at least one of the amendment proposals does include at-large candidates or council members as part of the configuration, but it describes them as being like a super district where the at-larges would not be countywide, but a little bit more regional, perhaps aligning with a certain number of council districts. And I wanted to get some feedback from Metro Legal, if we can, about can we do that? And if so, how would we go about doing that? And what might be how would that work if that discussion were to move forward in the amendment discussion tomorrow?
Mr. Dietz.
Thank you for the question. So, as you know, the charter currently requires that there be 35 district council members and 5 at large. Obviously, the statute purports to amend that charter so that there can be no more than 20. The charter does not have a provision for super districts. It's not included in the charter. But there is a provision of the law, which is the law until such time that there's an injunction. So we all have to act under this law. The law has a section, it is section 1B, 1D, subsection D. And it says, the Metropolitan Council shall take any legislative action required to effectuate this section, this law, by resolution receiving an affirmative vote. So, to the extent this council makes a determination that the super districts are required to effectuate the purposes of the act, reducing the council, then there is a valid argument there under the statute that would effectively amend our charter. So there is that power in this statute. I cannot tell you that if the council makes that determination, that there would not be a lawsuit over that, because there is the potential for an aggrieved party to file a lawsuit with the allegation that going from at-large council members to super district council members was not, quote, required to effectuate the statute. So I think the validity of that action would depend on the justification to say that it is required to effectuate the purposes of the new state law.
Well, thank you so much for that, Director Dietz. And I think my last question, and then I'll sit down and you'll tell my other colleagues in case they have other questions that I haven't raised yet, but I wanted to work as closely as I could with the department on this as we are going to be working on it together. My last question is, I mean, we have, Director Dietz has referenced a hearing on April the 4th, the morning of April the 4th. The Planning Commission, I think, would be making a decision potentially later that week. And so the question is, what would happen if assuming the injunction is not received, what would happen if the Planning Commission did not make a recommendation about maps?
Well, I think Mr. Dietz is getting a question, so I'm going to let you ask it again, okay? If you don't mind,
Sorry about that.
Withers.
Let me try to restate that. So we have, Director Dietz, you've referenced that there's a hearing on the morning of April the 4th. If an injunction is not received, if it's not enjoined, then the Planning Commission must continue, right? And so what would happen under that circumstance if the Planning Commission did not make a recommendation about maps?
So if there is no injunction, the Planning Commission is under a mandate to draw maps by April 10th. And it would be the advice of Metro Legal that they draw maps by April 10th.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think that's all of my questions for now. But again, wanted to make sure that I covered, I think, the things that are probably most important to the department as they try to work with council on this. So I look forward to hearing questions from my colleagues. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you. That line of questioning brought up two more questions, so I have three, sorry. Talking about the super districts, because that's something that I've never contemplated before, and I think we started to talk about it. I'm wondering so we heard the legal question, but from a minority representation thing, because I think what I heard anyway from Mr. Claxton's presentation was that the 5 or however many at large was used to balance out some of that minority representation. So does it help or hurt to have the at-large positions be tied to a quadrant or a certain districts with what you guys have to do with your state and federal laws and all that fun stuff?
Mr. Claxton.
Thank you. We can present a similar analysis as last week at the Planning and Zoning Committee tomorrow night to show kind of how we would anticipate that performing at the district level, and then alternatives at the super member level. What we won't be able to do is bring a lot of insight into how those groups of 4 districts are likely to perform. We may have some sense of like areas we might be able to pull them into, but because our analysis is primarily based on past performance, it's tougher for us to sort of envision at this much larger level how those might perform.
Okay. And then there was a question about quorum, and correct me, just, I don't know. What I thought the law said was the majority of members present voting. Does that mean we have to have a quorum on Wednesday, or is it just if 5 people show up and 3 people vote in favor? Is that where, or is it, do we have to have a quorum of this 40-member body or 39-member body?
We'll need to have a quorum in order to start a meeting of the council.
Okay. And then this is for Director Dietz. So on April the 4th, when you guys have the hearing, is your expectation to have some sort of clarity from the judges, or do they just hear and then they'll make a determination later? And is there a time frame in which they have to give some sort of determination?
There is no deadline for the court to issue a decision. What typically happens in a case like this, where there's an election contest underway, the court will move very quickly. I would anticipate having an opinion from the court within 48 hours and likely sooner.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Just to pick up on the timing question, if there is then appeal to that, can you speak to how that would play out? And then if there's a parallel lawsuit that might be federal, how does that timing work out?
Okay, so let's take the hypothetical that we win the injunction. The state will have a decision whether or not to appeal, and whether to appeal to the Intermediate Court of Appeals or to ask the Supreme Court to intervene and take the appeal directly. There are rules that permit that in situations where timing is urgent. So the state would ask the Supreme Court, most likely, to exercise drop-down jurisdiction, take the appeal, and hear it on an expedited basis. And the state's application to the Supreme Court is discretionary. The Supreme Court does not have to accept the appeal. There is no automatic right of appeal to the Supreme Court. There is an automatic right of appeal to the Intermediate Tennessee Court of Appeals. So if they go that step, then they have an automatic right of appeal. If they go to the Supreme Court, it is discretionary at the Supreme Court level whether they accept the appeal. If they accept the appeal, the court will almost certainly schedule a hearing on an expedited basis and issue a ruling on an expedited basis. Likewise, if we fail to obtain the injunction from this three-judge trial court, we likely would appeal and ask the Supreme Court very quickly to accept our appeal. Did that answer the question?
And so does that add another week and a half each time, or there's no way to know, or is there any way to predict?
You know, the history tells us that the Supreme Court has, in prior cases, acted really quickly, like within a matter of days. So, you know, we don't know what the schedule is. We don't know what else they have on their calendar, on their docket. But the court, in prior cases, in the midst of an election, has acted very quickly. There was one case out of Memphis where from the day the lawsuit was filed to the final ruling of the Tennessee Supreme Court, the whole process took 12 days. So they can act very quickly.
Councilmember Allen, anything else? Okay. Councilmember Hancock.
So tomorrow night, there are two special called meetings, correct? One of the Planning Committee and one of the entire Metro Council?
That's right. Planning and Zoning Committee meets at 4:30, and then there's a special meeting of the entire body at 6:30.
And so, though, as Councilman Withers so aptly pointed out, the Planning Committee doesn't typically vote on one particular substitute. They would make a recommendation on each. The actual recommendation wouldn't come from the Planning Committee. It would come from the Metro Council, where we will vote on each substitute. Is that correct? Or if we choose to vote?
Yeah, so it's the same as what we would do with any type of resolution. We need a committee report coming out of it. So they would make a recommendation up, down, defer, do something with both the resolution and possibly the substitutes, depends on what they want to do. And then that report would come as we take up the resolution tomorrow night at the full meeting.
And as has been tradition or procedure throughout this term, at least, each and every subsequent substitute that we vote on, if it's voted in the affirmative, it then overrides the previous one. Is that correct?
Ms. Darby, we've got a series of substitutes tomorrow, and so probably I'll let you answer that question.
That's correct. You'll have you have a main resolution, and then there are 4 substitutes. And if you vote for substitute A in the affirmative, and then you vote for substitute B in the affirmative, both can't move forward at the same time. So B would override A.
And then I heard loud and clear from the planning staff the emphasis on having a greater body or some additional members to our districts, whether they be at-large or super districts or whatnot. And just when we talk about representation and equality for our community, and as you have in the past looked at where the homes of the district council members are, have you also looked at where the homes of the at-large council members are?
It should be on.
We have not.
And the reason I ask that is because all 4 of our active at-large council members live in the southwestern quadrant of the city, which I do not believe gives equal representation to the entire city, and that's why I am in favor of the super district, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Councilmember Murphy. Hold on. Councilmember Murphy.
I thought we were asking questions. I didn't know we were getting into explaining our personal feelings on substitutes and trying to lobby the body on which substitute and version they'd like to see. So I'd like to get us back on topic.
Well, so trying to have a general discussion. Most of this should come up tomorrow. You're correct. So
Right, and we're in questions now. So if we could stay to questions. There are plenty of people in the queue.
Councilmember Hancock.
So I apologize if you felt I was overstepping. I was responding to what Councilman Withers' questions he was asking to the director. So I was asking the same questions to planning just because they are working on this. And I do hear also loud and clear that you guys would like a decision tomorrow that would make the job of presenting to the community easier. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Hancock. Councilor Mendez.
There's a question at the end of this comment. The setup here is, so in the 50s and early 60s, this city spent 8+ years, 2 charter commissions, 2 referendums, getting the first version of this body makeup right. And we're looking to vote on picking some option without any input from planning on something like 48-hour notice from when the substitutes were given to us yesterday morning to when we have the meeting. So maybe it's 60-hour notice, not 48-hour notice. And it seems like we're inherently skipping steps to do that, that if we had 9 months to do this, clearly no idea is a bad idea. And if we're going to have a once, and I see your head nodding, I appreciate that, nodding affirmatively, that if we were going to do a once every 60-year reworking about the balance of the council, it would be a highly iterative process where ideas would be collected, ideas would be vetted, and then data would be considered, and then we would pick something, not 60-hour notice to pick one of 4 options or to do nothing. And I expressed at our last meeting, and this is a question about whether, well, first of all, am I right about that we're inherently skipping steps to do this on 60-hour notice?
Clearly, more time would be helpful. It wasn't given to us.
Well, it wasn't given to the planning department.
Correct. When I say us, I'm talking about planning.
Okay.
It was not given to the planning department.
And so the next question relates to the idea of, like, I totally appreciate how it makes one department in the metropolitan government's life easier if we skip steps in the process and just pick a council size. But as far as maximizing the best representation for the county, understanding that 60 years ago, the first go around took 8 years, 2 charter commissions, 2 referendums to get to the current makeup. What would your advice be, that we prioritize convenience for the department or getting the best map and balance of council representation for the city?
To clarify, I'm not prioritizing convenience for the department. If you come sit with us in one of the sessions where we invite the public to go through the maps with us, we can deliver 4 maps, but I think being able to have productive and quality feedback from the community about what they're seeing and what they want to change or not change and what the outcomes are, I think there's just a responsibility to put something on the table that can be consumed. And putting 4 maps on the table in that kind of a discussion, I think would be very challenging for the community, not just the department, yes, the department, but the community as well.
Well, and I appreciate you answering the questions, and I'll save the deliberation for tomorrow, but I'm going to be very much in favor of not carving steps out, and like, I do not want to serve the extra year, but if it's a choice between skipping steps to have 60-hour notice decisions or the extra year, I'm going to prioritize not skipping steps. Thank you.
Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Excuse me. Could you speak to, I think Mr. Claxton spoke last week, to the diversity, what it looks like when there's no at-large members, 3 at-large members, and 5 at-large members. If I recall, and I don't know if we can pull up that slide or not, if we don't need to, we don't need to, but in a nutshell, statistically, well, I guess, can you run through? I'd rather you recap for us what that is. And yeah.
If I can have just a moment to pull that up.
Yeah,
I'd be happy.
cool. And yeah.
Councilmember O'Connell for a point of order. Hold on. There you go.
I want to make sure I understand what we're doing with this time, knowing that we have a special call meeting tomorrow. Is this to allow members to prepare for tomorrow's discussion? Because if we're meeting tomorrow, I don't want to take up time on tonight's agenda from, work we're supposed to do tomorrow.
So the point of tonight was to get ready for tomorrow. So it's to ask, I think the idea was that if you all have questions, hopefully you get answers tonight, but if you're going to ask questions that maybe the planning department has to go back and look, hate to wait for tomorrow to get those questions asked. So, hold on, council member, you don't have the floor. Okay, so that's the point. And so we're trying to refrain from debate. I get that, but this may be one of the most important measures that this council body, any council body has ever taken up. So we need to take our time and make sure we get questions addressed.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President.
This is the slide that we presented last week.
Yep.
Would you like a recap or just to review it?
Can you run? Yeah.
Sure. So what we found was with a 15 district configuration, we expect that as we begin drawing boundaries, we would likely be able to create 2 majority black districts in the north and north area, North Nashville and north of the river. We would likely be able to create 2 what we call plurality districts with no majority group in Southeast and Antioch that would perform similarly to the current District 28, 29, 32, and 33. Together, those would, at a 15 district configuration, represent 27% that would likely support black representation among the council districts. Once you factor in performance among the at-large in history, you would expect a 25 to 30% overall black representation on council. At 17, we would expect still only 2 majority black districts in that north and north area, 2 in the Southeast plurality for 24% of districts overall. Here, the at-large performance is wider. We noted it at the meeting last week that there were, among the top 3 places, we had not seen any black at-large members attain that spot. The top 3 places. We do have one correction. There was one Councilmember Gilmore, who after serving 2 terms did achieve a top 3 spot in her first at-large election. So it's 1, not 0. But based on the potential range of performance with 3 at-large seats, we might expect 20 to 30% black representation on a 17-member or a 17 district council. And then at 20 districts, we would see potentially 3 majority black districts in that north and north area. Still only likely 2 plurality districts in Southeast for 25% black representation overall. Assuming these alternate district configurations perform similarly to the current districts as you aggregate them together.
Thank you. So just to confirm then, so 25% looks like it's most achievable as 15 and 20. Is that correct?
It's achievable at any. The 3 at large becomes a very wide range because we don't have the grounds to assess what that performance looks like.
Okay. Historic data is indicative that the most diversity comes from either more at-large seats or no at-large seats. Is that what this data reflects? And if I'm reading that wrong, I'm most interested in making sure that the new body represents our city. 26% of our city is black. I want to make sure that we maintain at least 25% and preferably more. We currently have the most diverse council in the city's history, 50% women, more minorities and anyway, so I want to make sure we keep that going forward as much as we can, which is why I'm asking these questions. And so I understand that you might not be able to, I know with at-large, there's only so much hypothetical that you can do as compared to the data and the metrics that you get by district. So I'm, again, in the art form here of this. I guess what I'm hearing from you is it's more likely that there's less diversity. The data reflects that it's more likely that there's less diversity if there's only 3 at large?
I think there's a danger there for sure.
Okay. Vice Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a really quick question. I don't know if it's for you or for Ms. Kemp, but at the meeting last week, somebody brought up the fact that in this situation, the split of district versus at large is more important than the actual maps. That public engagement schedule that planning gave, would it be appropriate for planning to do that if we wanted to have those kinds of meetings about what the split should be, or would that be a council-driven engagement process?
You want to try that first, Ms. Kemp?
So, Councilman, if you can help me understand, so if council, you're asking if council were to go out and do additional meetings, am I hearing that? Help me.
No, I'm asking if we wanted there to exist meetings that instead of being about district lines were about what the split should be, would that be council driven or planning driven?
Okay, I think I understand your question. So there are 2 parts to this. The first part is trying to figure out what that split should be. Should it be 20? Should it be 17 and 3? Should it be 15 and 5? And then you've got the question of the maps. If your question is, should we be having public discussions about how that split should work?
We should. It's just who should do it.
Well, so I think that would probably have to be the council to do that, because what we're trying to do is figure out under a very, very tight time frame with parameters that are around, like the planning department, we're trying to figure out what that number should be. And I'm not sure if the council tomorrow wants to spend some time actually trying to figure out and hold some public hearings to do that part, then that's going to have to be put into the time frame as well. And again, the first time frame we're talking about, I guess the first immediate time frame, with the exception of April the 4th, is April the 10th, which has got the planning department where they have to come back with a plan with district lines.
Planning can, under the legislation, planning can just come back with one giant district and they will have fulfilled what they need to do under the law. We don't have to listen to their map. So I think really the timeline is May, and who should be driving the engagement to figure out that first important step, which is what the split should be. So if that's a council-driven process, that was my only question.
Right, and Councilman Rosenberg, I think it's a good question. I think it's probably for a good debate tomorrow. You bring it up tomorrow, and we'll try to figure out what we want to do.
Great, thank you.
Right, Councilmember Sepulveda, I've got a line. Is there something have you got a point of order? I can't take you out of order. Point of order, Councilmember Sepulveda.
Vice Mayor Schulman, is there a way that we could have all of these conversations tomorrow, since our queue is full and we're going to be taking it up at that point, and we have people here on specific legislation?
Well, so I've got people in the queue that want to be heard. That's up to them as to whether they want to be heard tonight. Again, if there are questions that need to be addressed that planning needs to take under advisement and have answers for tomorrow night, that was the purpose of this.
Can we send emails of our questions? Can we roll this to the heel?
Well, we certainly can, but that's up to this body, and that means that planning department staff has to stay for the entire meeting. Okay, I think we had 3 people. We have 3 people left in the queue. We have 3 people left in the queue. Okay, so listen up. This, again, is one of the most important things that this body is going to have to consider in the history of this metropolitan government. This is as important as it gets. And so we are trying to provide time for council members to get questions answered, and we're trying to take our time in a situation where there is not a lot of time. So if you want to if you don't have any questions tonight, if you want to debate it tomorrow, that's fine. But obviously we have planning department staff here that is taking their time out tonight, and they've been here before and they'll be here tomorrow. we've got the election commission here. You have got to take your time to understand what the questions are and allow people to have a chance to address their questions. So again, we have 3 people in the queue. I'm happy to ask each of them if they can hold their questions to tomorrow, but if they'd like to get them addressed tonight, I'd rather go ahead and have them addressed tonight. I think that's important. So, Councilmember Rosenberg, I think he got his question answered. There are 3 people left in the queue. Councilmember Rutherford, question for tonight?
Yes, I have two quick things. First off, Mr. President, I want to reiterate something that Chairman Withers said earlier. As Vice Chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee, I want to encourage all members of this body, not just the committee, to attend the committee meeting tomorrow because it's important to have as much of the debate and discussion as possible in the committee meeting. And so I highly encourage everyone to attend. And then lastly, Director Dietz had mentioned a live public feed for the hearing on the 4th. And I'd like to make sure that members receive a link to that so we know where to go.
All right, we can do that. All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Toombs.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And I can get an answer tomorrow. My question, and it probably piggybacks on Councilman Rosenberg. Okay, excuse me. If council does not meet that May 1st, May 18th, whichever date it is, deadline, what happens after that? Does planning go back to the drawing board? Are they out of the process? Does council have to create its own process? Just wondering what that looks like if we don't hit that May deadline.
Mr. Dietz.
Thank you for the question, council member. If the council does not adopt a new map by May 1, the current elections for 2023 are canceled, and members will have their terms extended for 1 year, and there will be elections in August of 24. That's the only option. So May 1 is a real deadline, and the default is if there's no action, there's a 5th year and elections in 24. The only election this year would be for mayor and vice mayor.
But what happens to the map if we don't hit that May 1st deadline? Are we still trying to figure out a map if we don't hit that May 1st deadline?
Well, you would need to have a map for 2024. You could take months to do that. As much time as you felt was fair to the candidates to know where the districts are and get started and raise money and all that. You would have additional time to draw a map out. I'm sorry if I didn't understand the question the first time, but yes, you would have to draw a map for 20 or fewer districts for 2024.
And Vice Mayor, going back to your response to Councilman Rosenberg, that would be a council-driven process?
So the council is, the planning department's not going to pick the number. And Mr. Dietz and Ms. Darby can correct me, but they're waiting for the council to pick a number. And I think what Councilman Rosenberg was trying to figure out was if there needs to be community meetings on that, who's going to be responsible for that? I think that is a council matter. What the planning department typically does is they're drawing maps and they're trying to get community engagement as to what their maps look like or should look like. But this body is going to have to, at some point, pick a number, whether it's now or whether it may be in 2024, depending on what happens with the court case. This is very complex. It's very difficult. There's a number of moving pieces, and that's why we're trying to take our time and make sure that we get everybody's questions answered. Okay. Councilmember Toombs, anything else? Okay. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the clarification. I think actually hearing the discussion tonight has led me to some questions that may be relevant to where we go to tomorrow. And so I think I want to follow through where Councilmember Mendez and some things that are related to what you just said in response to Councilmember Toombs. So I think my first question is maybe to Metro Legal here. Mr. Dietz, is it your, I guess I'll ask it this way. Whose obligation is it to the Vice Mayor's point, pick a number? Whose obligation is it to pick a number? Is it the council's obligation? Is it the planning department's obligation? Like where should the number originate?
Well, thank you, council member. It's a good question. The problem is that the new state law is silent on this process. The state law assumes that the planning commission will know what the number is. The statute does not provide a process for coming up with that number, which means it is up to this body to do that, or in the alternative, this body could direct the planning commission to do whatever it believes is best, so long as the number does not exceed 20. That is a viable alternative here. So we're dealing with a gap in the statute that, frankly, they did not give us any guidance on, and it's I view as a defect in the statute. So the only way for the planning commission to move forward is to be given a number by this council or a resolution passed directing the planning commission to do its best to come up with a number that it believes is in the best interest of Metro.
All right, and I guess then my next question is, I guess it's kind of a question of if we're even prepared for tomorrow. And so maybe it's a question for either Mr. Claxton or Director Kemp. We don't have there is the original resolution nor any of the substitutes consider the premise of the super district. And so as we go forward, I guess this is again following through Councilmember Mendez's line of inquiry. As we do this sort of chicken and egg process, are we guaranteed that we are going to, well, not even guaranteed. I want to make sure that as we get good ideas from colleagues or the community, that we are that we don't make a decision tomorrow night that excludes, say, the principle of the super district, if in fact the super district gives another avenue toward more equitable representation countywide. So I don't know if you all have a sense of how we should even walk into tomorrow if that option is not on the table and planning would like to recommend it. I mean, if we pick a number at tomorrow's meeting and tell you all to go, and maybe this is back to Mr. Dietz, like if planning comes back and we have maps, I don't know if this winds up being a timeline issue where then we go back and forth and just miss the deadline because we'd like to entertain something that was super districts, but we didn't have that on the table for tomorrow.
Mr. Dietz.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, and thank you for the question, council member. So obviously, this timeline is suboptimal. It is not what any of us would do in a rational world, but we're not in a rational world. So we have to deal with the law because it's the law. And I'm a lawyer. I believe in following the law. Until a court says that it's not the law, we have to do our best to follow the law. So I start with that premise. If this council is unable to reach a majority vote on any of the proposals, then at some point before April 10th, the Planning Commission will need to do its very best to come up with a map that it believes is the best for the interests of Metro, because they are under a legal mandate to do that. And it's important that the Planning Commission follow the law because we live by law and the rule of law is important. So they have a deadline. They need to meet it. Whether this council gets to consensus on one format or two to say to the Planning Commission, go forward, that's up to this council. At some point, the Planning Commission will need to do its best with or without direction from this body.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I think that covers me.
All right. Councilmember Johnston.
I'll make it quick. I'm sorry. I just wanted, because I got confused there for a second. So I just wanted to make it clear, and Director Dietz sort of just did. Well, you did. But so if we don't come up with a consensus, the Planning Commission is going to do what they need to do based off of what the Planning department has come up with, which I think they've made it clear that 15 and 5 is the best, whether you agree with it or not, that's what they're saying. So they're going to draw maps 15 and 5. The planning commission will vote on it. We'll have those, the planning commission will have a determination by the 10th, and then the council has from the 10th until May the 1st to adopt that map, yes or no, right?
Mr. Dietz.
Well, once again, I wish we were in the land of clarity. We're not. Under the current rules, it's an up or down vote. If the council determines that it is required to do something different, then it can invoke subsection D and say it is required that we do something different, and then whatever that action is could be subject to litigation or not. But none of this is certain. They have suspended the charter and all the rules that we've acted under. So what you do going forward, up or down vote, I'm not sure this council couldn't adopt a different process to get to a resolution of the map. I'm not sure it couldn't be amended. That obviously is not as efficient a process as an up or down vote, but I can't, as I stand here today, and I'm willing to look at this before tomorrow night, but as I stand here today, I can't tell you that you must take an up or down vote in May.
Okay.
All right. Councilmember Nash.
This is for Councilor Dietz. Assuming that tomorrow night Epiphany appears and we all go 15 and 5 and go forward and run with that, and then the next council that's elected here says, oh my God, look what happened. This is the worst thing we ever did. Could then we redesign another set of districts?
Mr. Dietz.
If the next council wanted to change the maps for the election in 2027, it could do that. As long as it does not exceed 20 members.
Councilmember Nash.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. So HB 48, or Public Chapter 21, says that we can pass whatever we need to by resolution to effectuate the thing, and that's why we're allowed to do this. But once we've made a decision, we're no longer needing to change we no longer need to change the number in order to effectuate the new law. So wouldn't it go back to having to go through a charter process to change the makeup of the council at that point?
Mr. Dietz.
If the question is, if a council is voted in, then the charter would be amended to be capped at 20, but after that, the remaining provisions of the charter would be in place to guide the next council on how to go about drawing a map for the next election. Did that answer the question?
So if we create a 17-3 split, which we need to, or whatever, 15-5, 20-0, in order to comply with the new law, that's the reason we're able to do it just on a whim here instead of going through the charter process. In the future, if you wanted to change the makeup of the council, wouldn't you need to go through the charter revision process since it's no longer a necessary change in order to comply with the law?
I believe that's accurate. I have not thought about that, but I believe that's accurate. If I have a different thought, I will come back tomorrow night and say so.
Okay, so if we, like Councilmember Nash said, go 15-5, realize we screwed up and want to change it next term, we're going to need to go through the charter revision process.
I believe that's correct. I don't really know how else this council could do it. You are back under the charter. This is a law designed to get you a different number of council members this year. And if you do that and the council's seated, this law would not necessarily apply to what the next council does because it will be past that time. And so that council should be bound by the charter and follow the charter revision process if it wishes to change the number of council members or the configuration.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Hart.
So to that end, could the state come back and decide that they don't like how the council decided they wanted it to be and change it? And could this happen yearly?
Council member, I'm by nature an optimistic person. I believe we shall win the injunction and put this to rest. If we fail, then yes, that theoretically could happen.
Thank you, Councilmember Hart. That's it in the queue. Remember that we have planning and zoning tomorrow at 4:30, and special meeting starts at 6:30. So please be here. All right, we are now ready to proceed with the consent resolutions. I'm going to go through and read the resolutions that are on consent. Before everybody leaves, planning department staff and Mr. Dietz has left, and Mr. Roberts, thank you all for being here tonight. We very much appreciate it. Okay. And you're leaving Ms. Milligan, so thank you. All right. All right. These are items on the consent agenda. Item number 1, RS 2023-2032 is on consent. 2064 is on consent. 2065 on consent. 2066 on consent. 2067 on consent. 2068 on consent. 2069 on consent. 2070 is on consent. 2071 is on consent. 2072 is on consent. 2073 is on consent. 2074 on consent. 2075 on consent. 2076 is on consent. 2077 is on consent. 2078 is on consent. 2079 is on consent. 2080 is on consent. 2081 on consent. 2082 on consent. 2083 on consent, and 2084 on consent. Anything needs to be bumped off that consent calendar? I think if I was right, there's only 2 that are not on the consent calendar. That's items 2 and 3. Anything needs to be bumped off? All right, here they are, RS 2023-2032 by Council Members Cash, Parker, and others. A resolution requesting that the Metropolitan Department of Codes Administration revise its landlord registration form to require a landlord to provide acknowledgement of the number of unrelated persons who may live together in a single dwelling unit. Item number 4, RS 2023-2064 by O'Connell and Roten. Resolution approving electric utility easement agreement with the Electric Power Board, the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. Item number 5 by Roten and Withers, RS 2023-2065. A resolution approving an intergovernmental license agreement between Metro through the Department of General Services and the Department of Safety and Homeland Security for parking spaces located at 5224 Hickory Hollow Parkway. Item number 6 by Councilmember Roten, RS 2023-2066. Resolution accepting terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement for public utility equipment, related accessories and supplies for general services. Item number 7, Roten and Benedict, RS 2023-2067. Resolution approving the First Amendment to an agreement between Metro government and Azteca Systems LLC to provide the enterprise licensing agreement for CityWorks software. Number 8, RS 2023-2068 by Roten and Benedict. Resolution approving a statement of collaborative intent to Vanderbilt from the Metropolitan Government through ITS in connection to a community in the loop approach to leveraging artificial intelligence for efficient and equitable response systems grant. Item number 9, RS 2023-2069 by Roten and Syracuse. A resolution approving a contract between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and ESI Acquisition Inc. to provide crisis information management systems. Item number 10, RS 2023-2070 by Taylor, Roten and Hart. Resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the Centennial Park Conservancy to the Metropolitan Government through the Parks Board to fund the purchase and installation of flooring in the Parthenon's office. RS 2023-2071, item number 11, Toombs, Roten, and others, resolution accepting a grant from the Titans Foundation, the Metropolitan Government through the Parks Board to provide equipment, resources, and upgrades to all the computer labs at the Luby Community Center. RS 2023-2072, Roten and Hurt, resolution accepting an in-kind grant from St. Bernard's Academy to the Metropolitan Government, acting through the Parks Board for a portable stage, including stairs and skirting. RS 2023-2073, Withers, Roten, and Hurt, resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the Friends of Shelby Park and bonds to the Metropolitan Government through the Parks Board for the purchase and installation of a boardwalk on the Shelby Park Events Lawn Loop. Item number 14, Henderson, Roten, and Hurt, RS 2023-2074, resolution approving Amendment 1 to a grant from the Friends of Warner Parks to the Metropolitan Government through the Parks Board to provide seasonal staffing for the Special Works Education and Trail program at Warner Parks. RS 2023-2075, Withers, Roten, and others, resolution approving an application for a Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability Equality. It's called a RAISE grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation to aid in the community outreach planning and design of the East Bank Boulevard and Greenway project. Item number 16, Withers and Pulley, RS 2023-2076, resolution authorizing Magnolia Woodland LLC to construct and install an area encroachment at 1000 Woodland Street. RS 2023-2077, Roten, resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Jeffrey Wilson against the Metropolitan Government for $27,700, amount to be paid out of the self-insured liability fund. Item number 18, Roten and Pulley, RS 2023-2078, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between Department of Housing and Development and Housing Agency and the Department of Water and Sewer Services for sewer storm separation on the 2nd Street separation project. Item number 19 by Council Members Roten and Pulley, RS 2023-2079, resolution approving an Amendment 1 to a hazard mitigation grant from the State of Tennessee Department of Military, TEMA, to the Metropolitan Government, acting through the Department of Water and Sewer Services. Item number 20 by Council Member Roten, RS 2023-2080, resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Haley Gunter against the Metropolitan Government for $60,000, amount to be paid out of the self-insured liability fund. RS 2023-2081, Syracuse Ledge and others, a resolution recognizing Lorenzo Washington's efforts and contributions to preserve the music legacies of North Nashville and historic Jefferson Street. Item number 22 by Council Members Sepulveda, Welsh, Sledge, Mendez, and others, a resolution recognizing the opening of the Salvadoran Consulate General's office and welcoming the Consulate General of El Salvador to Nashville. That's RS 2023-2082. Item number 23, RS 2023-2083 by Councilmember Hurt, resolution recognizing the contributions of Delta Sigma Theta to public service and designating March 3rd as Delta Day in Nashville and Davidson County. And item number 24 by Councilmembers Bradford and Allen, RS 2023-2084, resolution supporting Earth Hour 2023 on Saturday, March 25th, 2023, from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Those are the items on the consent agenda. Does anything need to be bumped off? Seeing none, I need some committee reports. Budget and Finance, Councilmember Roten, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance approved 2023-2064, 2065, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 77, 78, 79, and 80, 11 in favor, 0 against, and I want to thank Vice Chair Gamble for standing in for me while I was under the weather. Thank you, Vice Chair.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Roten and Councilmember Gamble. Councilmember Benedict, Government Operations.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Government Ops reviewed resolutions RS 2023-2067 and 2068 and recommended approval of both, 6 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning and Zoning met and considered resolutions RS 2023-2065 and RS 2023-2076. We recommended approval of both of those, 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right. Councilmember Hurt, Public Facilities.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Facilities, Arts, and Culture reviewed RS 2023-2070, 2071, 2072, 2073, and 2074, 7 in favor and 0 against.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Syracuse, Public Health.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Health and Safety considered 2023-2069. Recommended approval, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Murphy. let's go to Councilmember Pulley, Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Transportation Infrastructure recommended approval of RS 2023-20, 75, 76, 78, and 79, and I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we need, we'd like to have.
Sorry, that would be 10 in favor, 0.
Councilmember Rosenberg's got it. Okay, Councilmember Rosenberg for rules confirmation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules vote considered 2081, 2082, 2083, 2084. They were all 5 in favor, none against, and I move approval of the consent agenda.
All right, Councilmember Rosenberg has moved approval of the consent agenda for resolutions, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All right. We have a late file. Councilmember Porterfield?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to be marked as abstain now.
Okay.
Can I do that without messing anything up?
Abstain on the entire consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on. When there's an abstention and no negative votes on a resolution, Chairman either call for a roll call vote or direct the clerk to record the names of members who abstained. So you're abstaining on every resolution?
Or I can just abstain on one, whatever is easier, Vice Mayor. But I want to abstain on number 11.
Okay, so I'm going to direct the clerk to note that Councilmember Porterfield abstained on item number 11 on the consent agenda. Is that okay?
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. We have a late file, but let me go back and pick up the ones that were not on the consent agenda. Item number 2, RS 2023-2037 by Council Members Roten, Syracuse, and others. It's a resolution appropriating a total of $1 million from a certain account of the Community Safety Fund for a grant to the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. Councilmember Roten, you're recognized.
Councilmember Syracuse got that.
Okay, Councilmember Syracuse, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have an amendment.
All right.
On this one. I'd like to move the amendment.
All right. Councilmember Syracuse has moved the amendment, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
Thank you. So this amendment simply is just a revision of the contract that replaces one of the 2 case managers with a program manager. And so the contract and the spending plan was just amended to reflect that. Thank you. Move approval.
Okay, so Councilmember Syracuse has moved, has explained the amendment and moved the amendment. Again, properly seconded. Any questions on the amendment? Councilmember Welch. Oh, okay. All right. Any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment's on. Councilmember Syracuse, you're on your resolution as amended.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move approval as amended.
Councilmember Syracuse has moved approval as amended, properly seconded. Councilmember Welch, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. As you know, I deferred this resolution at our last meeting because I had some questions, and I very much appreciate the very detailed information and answers to my questions that I got today. And I want to make it clear that my concern and my reason for asking those questions is because I want Metro to be supporting nonprofits like the Urban League, and I really want to make sure that our taxpayer funds are monitored properly. And what caught my attention was some figures like for travel and whatever that seemed a little bit robust, and I thought we needed to take a second look at those. I just want to make sure that the contracts are used as they are actually intended. All of our contracts and we are serving the taxpayers and our constituents in a really efficient way. And I feel like some of the contracts that we have gotten recently are a little bit vague, and it's really hard to understand where the money's actually going. So I hope going forward we can be a little more clear, so we don't have to hold up what is a very good funding resolution for a very deserving nonprofit in the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Welsh. Anybody else? Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we're ready to vote on RS 2023-2037 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution as amended passes. Item number 3, RS 2023-2063 by Council Members Allen, Welsh, and others. A resolution extending the provision of Chapter 5.11 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws as enacted under Ordinance Number BL 2021-972. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Budget and Finance. Councilmember Roten. This is 2063. I think it was deferred.
Hold on one sec.
Okay. He's putting on his glasses.
So I can see, yes. Yes, it was approved, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Approved or deferred?
Deferred, I'm sorry, one meeting, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilmember Pulley, Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Transportation Infrastructure recommended deferral to April 4th meeting, 10 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for one meeting deferral, please.
Councilmember Allen has moved for a one meeting deferral, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Opposed, no. This one's deferred to the next council meeting. All right, so that takes care of everything on the consent agenda and regular agenda for resolutions, with the exception of a late file resolution. It is should have gotten into your information through email today. It is a resolution sponsored by Councilmember Sawara and Councilmember Murphy. Resolution condemning recent acts of anti-Semitism in Nashville and Davidson County, declaring Nashville to be a welcoming place for all, and requesting the Metropolitan Human Relations Commission to provide recommendations and solutions to fight hate. Councilmember Sawara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to request suspension of the rules.
All right, it went to the Rules Committee. Councilmember Murphy. All right, Councilmember Rosenberg. This is the late file resolution. Do you know it came before Councilmember Sawara's late file resolution came before the Rules Committee? And she's seeking a suspension.
Yes, Mr. President. The rules had no problem with the late file and then voted 5-0 in favor on the merits of the bill resolution.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Sawara, you're recognized for a suspension of the rules motion.
Think I'd like to
move to suspend
suspend the rules.
All right, I've got a motion to suspend the rules. Is there any objection to suspension of the rules to hear this resolution tonight? Seeing none, rules are suspended. You're on your late file resolution.
Thank you. I'd like to move for approval with a brief comment.
All right. So Councilmember Sawara has moved for approval of the resolution, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Colleagues, I'm asking first that we do the Murphy rule on this, but more importantly, I'm requesting your support of this resolution. I think what this resolution intends to do is three things. Number one, we wanted to state unequivocally that we do not tolerate hate in our city. It's not a good thing. I cannot tell you how many times that I've seen signs of hate in places of worship around this city, but we want to tell the Jewish community, and we want to tell all of our Nashville residents that we, as the elected officials, do not tolerate this and that we condemn this. I know that when this happened to my house of worship, it meant a lot when people in the community stood up and said, this is not our city. We're welcoming regardless of your faith, regardless of who you are, your race. This is Nashville, and we're all together. So this resolution is doing that, saying that to the Jewish community that we condemn this and we're all together and everybody is welcome here. The other thing that it's also doing is that it's actually making a request, thanks to Councilmember Murphy for the addition, that we condemn things a lot and we just make resolution and then we move on. But we want to follow this resolution with action. Meaning that we're asking the Human Relations Commission to actually come up with suggestions and steps that we need to take as a city to make sure that this does not keep happening, and that's the second thing that it does. And then lastly, I want to thank all the people of Nashville that actually came together. The neighbors actually came out and they help, get rid of the drawing. And this is the thing that makes Nashville the most beautiful. Every time that hate raises ugly head, that people always stand up, people are always showing up. I always tell folks, as a Muslim, I've faced Islamophobia a lot of times. And people that live outside of Tennessee, when they see in the news what happened to a mosque being burned down, or go home sign or anything like that, always feel like it's so difficult living in Tennessee. And I always tell everyone that I really love living here because for every act of hate, there's 100, sometimes 1,000 more acts of kindness. And that's what we are as a city, and that's what the neighbors shows. I want to thank those neighbors. I want to thank Nashvillians for always standing up. And I'm asking you all to vote in support to say, look, we condemn this. Thank you to Nashville, and also to ask for a course of action. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Sawara. Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I specifically want to credit Councilmember Murphy, who made known that there was a neighbor-led effort to resolve a recent issue that occurred in her district, and I think the signs of community support there to recover from the act of hate were, to Councilmember Suarez's point, far more profound than the acts of hate itself. And I want to credit Councilmember Murphy for just the kind of raising awareness of the situation as well as the support, and really encourage people to support this resolution. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Suarez mentioned the Murphy rule. So without objection, everybody voting in favor of this will be listed as a prime sponsor. We are ready to vote. This is the late file resolution. All those in favor of the resolution say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Councilmember Suarez and Councilmember Murphy. That completes, I believe, everything on resolutions. We are now on bills on introduction and first reading. We'll take them all at one time unless something needs to be bumped off of first reading. Anything needs to be bumped off? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval of all bills on first reading. Got a motion properly seconded. We are voting on all bills on introduction first reading. If you're in favor of the motion to approve, say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All bills are adopted on first reading. We have no late file bills on first reading. We are now on bills on second reading. I'm going to go through the consent calendar and let you know what's on consent. Item number 37, BL 2023-1743 is on consent. 1744 is on consent. 1745 on consent. 1746 on consent. 1747 on consent. 1748 on consent. 1749 on consent. 1750 is on consent, 1751 is on consent, 1752 on consent, 1753 on consent, 1754 is on consent, 1755 is on consent, 1756 is on consent, and 1757 is on consent. Anything needs to be bumped off of the consent calendar? Seeing none, these are, I'm going to read you the captions on the bills on second reading consent. Item number 37, BL 2023-1743 by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance provide for a designation of public property within specified areas of downtown Nashville as a temporary special event zone during the time period beginning at 6 o'clock a.m. June the 7th, 2023, ending at midnight on June 12th, 2023, relative to the use of these areas in conjunction with the 2023 CMA Fest. Item number 38, BL 2023-1744 by Councilmember O'Connell, Roten, and others. Ordinance approving a greenway conservation easement on certain property at 801 12th Avenue North, Nashville. BL 2023-1745 by Councilmembers Swope and Roten and others. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Property to donate to the state of Tennessee via quitclaim deeds real property consisting of approximately 0.136 acres located at 6681 Nolensville Pike for use in construction at State Route 11, US 31A, Nolensville Road from south, Burkett Road near SR 254, Old Hickory Boulevard. Item number 40 by Councilmembers Taylor, Withers, and Pulley, Bill 2023-1746. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing public water mains and accept new public water mains for two properties located at 2309-2315 Clifton Avenue. Item number 41, BL 2023-1747 by Councilmembers Gamble, Withers, and Pulley. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept a new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements property located at Brick Church Pike unnumbered, also known as Brick Church Pike subdivision. Item number 42, BL 2023-1748 by Councilmembers Taylor, Withers, and Pulley. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing public utility easement property located at 1702 17th Avenue North. BL 2023-1749, Councilmembers Rutherford, Withers, and Pulley. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept a new public sanitary sewer force main and easements property located at 6785A Sunnywood Drive. Item number 44, BL 2023-1750, Hancock, Withers, and Pulley. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new public sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for three properties located at 1145 and 1201 Neelage Bend Road and Neelage Bend Road unnumbered. Item number 45, BL 2023-1751, Hancock, Withers, and Pulley. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new public sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements property located at 1201 Neelage Bend Road. BL 2023-1752. Item number 46, O'Connell, Withers, and Pulley. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing public accommodation and sanitary sewer mains, and sanitary sewer manholes, new public sanitary sewer mains and sanitary sewer manholes, property located at 915 Division Street. Item number 47, Bill 2023-1753, Taylor's, Withers, and Poley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new public water mains, property located at 5 City Boulevard. Item number 48, Bill 2023-1754, Swope, Withers, and Poley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for two properties located at 5978 and 5984 Edmondson Pike. BL 2023-1755, Withers and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, fire sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at 6018 Mountain View Road. Item number 50, BL 2023-1756, Gamble, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing public sanitary sewer mains, manholes, and easements, accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for two properties located at 420 Green Lane and Tisdale Drive. And item number 51, Bill 2023-1757, Withers and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements, property located at 12474 Old Hickory Boulevard. Those are the items on the second reading consent agenda. Does anything need to be bumped off? Seeing none, we are ready for some committee reports. I've got a couple from Councilmember Roden. You're recognized for Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance approved 2023-1744 and 1745. 11 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee met and considered, I think, most of these items, but ordinances BL 2023-1744 through 1757, and we recommended all of those items, 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hurt, we're looking. Councilmember Swope. This is public facilities.
Bills on second?
Yeah, 1743 and 1744.
Public facilities considered 1743, 1744. Approved both, 7-4, 0 against.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Syracuse, Public Health.
Thank you. Public Health and Safety considered 1743, recommended approval, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, and Councilmember Poole, you got the last report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Transportation and Infrastructure recommended approval BL 2023-1744 through 1757, 10 in favor, 0 against, and I recommend approval of, or I move approval of the consent agenda.
All right, Councilmember Pulley has moved approval of the second reading consent agenda, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the second reading consent agenda say aye. Opposed, no. Second reading consent agenda is approved. We've got two bills on second reading still to cover. Item number 35, Bill 2023-1740, Rosenberg and Evans, ordinance amending section 11.12.080 of the Metropolitan Code relative to the discharge of weapons. Councilmember Rosenberg, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee report, please.
Public Health and Safety, Councilmember Syracuse.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At the request of the sponsor, it was recommended deferred 3 meetings.
3 meetings. Councilmember Rosenberg?
3 meetings, please.
3 meetings. All right. So the motion is to defer 3 meetings, properly seconded. Any questions on the deferral? All those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is deferred 3 meetings. All right. Item number 36, BL 2023-1742 by Council Members Allen and Evans. This is an ordinance requiring the Metro Division of Housing to establish a public dashboard on how the city is addressing the issue of housing affordability in Nashville and Davidson County. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Hauser, Affordable Housing.
Yes, affordable housing voted 5 in favor, 0 against for 1 deferral.
Okay. I think it's an automatic deferral on this one. Deferral, okay. 1 meeting?
Yes, I did ask for a 1 meeting deferral, but I would like to make a brief explanation. Can I do that?
I'm always happy to
thank
do
you.
that. Councilmember Allen, you recognize. This one will be deferred 1 meeting, you recognize.
Great. So this is one of the many great recommendations from the Affordable Housing Task Force that the Councilmember Zilfat-Soar and I both served on, that has come up with some great solutions to deal with housing. And Director Hubbard had asked if we defer it so that Casey Ensign, who's been working on this, can make a presentation to the Affordable Housing committee when we take it up. And I would also like to ask the members of the Affordable Housing Committee to join me as co-sponsors on this. So with that, I renew my motion for a one meeting.
It's just an automatic deferral, so we just go on.
Don't even vote.
Okay.
But I
Don't
still
even
want to
have
ask
to
for the
vote.
co-sponsors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, that takes care of everything on second reading. We are now on third reading, and we have a number of bills on third reading consent. Okay, here we go. Item number 53, BL 2022-1581 is on consent. 1619 can't be on consent, okay. 1682 is on consent. 1709 is on consent. 1710 is on consent. 1711 is on consent. 1718 is on consent. 1719 is on consent. 1720 is on consent. 1721 is on consent. 1722 is on consent. 1723 is on consent. 1725 is on consent. 1726 is on consent. 1727 is on consent. 1731 is on consent. 1732 is on consent. 1733 is on consent. 1734 is on consent. 1735 is on consent. 1736 is on consent. 1737 is on consent. 1738 is on consent. And 1739 is on consent. Anything needs to be bumped off of the consent calendar? Councilmember Parker, you recognize.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I need to pull item 59, 2023-1711.
59?
Yes, sir.
Item number 59 is pulled off of consent. Okay. Okay. Anything else needs to be pulled off of consent? All right. All right, first one up is item number 53, BL 2022-1581 by Benedict Sledge and others. It's an ordinance amending Metropolitan Code Section 17.12.040 and 17.28.103, regulate the location of electric utility meters in residential areas to amend the requirements for underground utilities. For new residential developments, that's Benedict Sledge and others. Again, BL 2022-1581. Item number 55, BL 2023-1682 by Councilmembers Toombs. An ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from CL to CL in S zoning. Properties located at 2425 and 2427 Brick Church Pike. Next item is item number 57, BL 2023-1709 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from CSORI, RM20 and RS5 to SP zoning for various properties located west of Gallatin Avenue, north of Douglas Avenue, and the companion bill, which is item number 58, BL 2023-1710. Ordinance to authorize building material restriction requirements for BL 2023-1709. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Next item on consent is item number 63, BL 2023-1718 by Councilmember Sledge. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from IR to MULA zoning for property located at 469 Chestnut Avenue, approximately 69 feet north of Humphreys Street, 0.94 acres. BL 2023-1719 by Robertson and Pulley. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from IR to SP zoning for property located at 5901 California Avenue, southeast corner of 60th Avenue North and California Avenue. Item number 65, BL 2023-1720 by Councilmembers Toombs. An ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from OR20 to CL zoning for property located at 2106 Buena Vista Pike, approximately 290 feet northeast of Clarksville Pike, 0.14 acres. BL 2023-1721, that's item number 66 by Councilmember Welsh. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from RS5 to OR20 zoning for property located at 2206 Austin Avenue, and a portion of property located at 341 and 341C Oriole Avenue, southeast corner of Oriole Avenue and Austin Avenue. BL 2023-1722, item number 67 by Councilmember Gamble. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying an historic landmark overlay district property located at 815 Nella Drive, approximately 450 feet feet west of the corner of Green Acre Street and Nella Drive. And the companion bill, BL 2023-1723 by Councilmember Gamble. Ordinance authorized building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2023-1722. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Next item on consent is item number 70, BL 2023-1725. Councilmember Van Reese, ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from CS to SP zoning for properties located at 3101 and 3105 Dickerson Pike, northeast corner of Dickerson Pike and Broadmoor Drive, 9.13 acres. Item number 71, that's the companion bill, BL 2023-1726 by Councilmember Van Reese, an ordinance to authorize building material restriction requirements for BL 2023-1725. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Item number 72, BL 2023-1727 by Robertson Pulley, ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from R8 to RM15A NS zoning for properties located at 5705A and B Robertson Avenue, 5707A and B Robertson Avenue, approximately 130 feet southeast of Snyder Avenue. Next item on consent is item number 76, BL 2023-1731. Councilmember Suara, Toombs, Porterfield, and others, an ordinance to amend section 2.149.040 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws regarding the Barnes Fund for Affordable Housing. Item number 77, Sledge, Witherson, Pulley, BL 2023-1732, an ordinance authorizing Reservoir Zone 3 LLC to install, construct, and maintain underground encroachment in the right-of-way located at 1310 Hillside Avenue. Item number 78, Bill 2023-1733, Roten, Witherson, Pulley, ordinance authorizing the acquisition of certain rights-of-way easements, property rights by negotiation or condemnation for use in public projects of the Metropolitan Government, initially for the purposes of NDOT Antioch Pike Easement Acquisition Project. Item number 79, Roten and Pulley, BL 2023-1734, ordinance approving a contract between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and Principal Environmental, Inc., provide parts and products needed for Metro Water and Sewer Services equipment. Item number 80, Swope, Withers, and Pulley, BL 2023-1735, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at 5693 Cloverland Drive. Item number 81, BL 2023-1736, Pulley and Withers, ordinance to authorize the Metropolitan Government to accept the replacement of existing public water mains and new public sanitary sewer manholes, property located at 3808 Cleghorn Avenue. BL 2023-1737, item number 82, Swope, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new public sanitary sewer manholes, property located at 95 Plum Nelly Circle. Item number 83, BL 2023-1738, Benedict, Withers, and Pulley, an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing sanitary sewer mains, sewer manholes, and easements, except new public sanitary sewer mains, sewer manholes, and easements, three properties located at 2304, 2306, 2310 Riverside Drive. And BL 2023-1739, item number 84, Roberts, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept the replacement of existing public water main and rehabilitation of existing sanitary sewer manholes, property located at 5607B Morrow Road. Those are the items on the third reading consent agenda. Anything needs to be bumped off? All right, seeing none, I need some committee reports, but I think they're all coming from Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee met and considered BL 2022-1581, 1682, 1709, 1710, 17, 18, 19, and 20, 21, 22, 23, 17, 25, and 26, 27. I think that's it for us on consent, and we recommended approval of each of those 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right, thank you. Motion to approve third reading consent?
I'd like to move to approve the consent calendar.
I got a motion to approve the third reading consent agenda, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Third reading consent agenda passes. Okay, let's go back and pick up the bills that were not on third reading consent agenda. First item up is on my page 17. It's item number 52. It is BL 2022-1471 by Council Members Parker and Welsh. Ordinance to amend section 17.24.030 and 17.04.060 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to amend the definitions of dwelling unit and family. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move the bill and the amendment that is in the amendments packet.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the bill to move the bill, BL 2022-1471, seconded. You're on your bill, and now you want to move the amendment.
Move the amendment.
Okay, so Councilmember Parker is moving an amendment. It's in your package. Councilmember Parker moves the amendment, properly second. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So y'all will remember we've had extensive community engagement on this bill. We've had a lot of committee discussion. We've had a lot of floor discussion on it. This amendment really comes out of that committee and floor discussion. What this amendment does is it ties the maximum number of unrelated individuals that can live in a dwelling unit to the number of bedrooms, which is something that was brought up in committee. And, you know, it was also brought up in the initial drafting of this legislation, but frankly, we did not include it for simplicity's sake. But I do think that the concerns that were raised by colleagues as well as members of the public warranted adding this to the bill. So what this does is it limits it to 4 or fewer unrelated people in a home with fewer than 3 bedrooms, and in a home with 3 or more bedrooms allows up to 5 unrelated individuals to live in a dwelling unit. So with that, I'll renew the motion to approve the amendment.
All right, so I've got a motion to approve the amendment on BL 2022-1471. It's been properly seconded. I've got discussion. Councilmember Pulley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I would oppose this amendment. Is it amendment or a substitute that we're voting on now?
It's an amendment.
Amendment, okay. Because the amendment, what it is, the essential problem that I have with it is 5 people create 5 unrelated occupants, bring things like 5 unrelated vehicles to a neighborhood. And just to give you an example of what that does to stress our neighborhoods, I've got one in my district now that has 5 unrelated occupants. We have tried to enforce the current rule, and we're struggling in the provisions that are in the current bill, which has been amended, do provide avenues for that enforcement feature if that is passed. But the 5, I got a call the other day from the neighbors who live right across the street, and there were 9 vehicles at that residence. The 5 who are separate vehicles from the separate owners, and then 4 people visiting separately those separate owners. I tried to, just the other day, drive down a street just to the north of 440, and 2 of us tried to get from one street over one block where there was vehicles on both sides of the street, and it forced it into basically a 1-lane road where we had to navigate by moving into parking spaces that were available to get through that street. I can only imagine how that street would be impacted if this bill were passed and we had 5 unrelated vehicles for several houses that are on that street. So my problem with it, as much as anything, is the stress that it puts on our neighborhoods. So for that reason, I'm opposed to this amendment, and I'd urge you to do the same. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I think one of our biggest concerns as we've been contemplating this entire, this ordinance the entire time has been the enforcement piece of it. And so while I think theoretically it makes sense to tie it to bedrooms, I think in reality that creates a bigger challenge for the codes department, because if someone doesn't allow you inside their home to count the bedrooms, then you can't enforce it. The other thing that I have in my district is most of the homes in my district were built in the 60s-ish, and most of them are 3 bedrooms. And so at that point, our concern about the number of cars and the congestion and the number of cars that are not necessarily parked in the grass but on the street, creating very dangerous streets, still remains. And this body, I think, agreed on 4, which I will go back to, and I would reinforce that compromise. The other thing that happens in my district is I have people that will take 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom units and unlawfully change them to 2-bedroom and 4-bedroom units in order to put more people in there. Again, the ability to enforce this is basically nil. I mean, codes has already expressed that. So I think in the interest of protecting our neighborhoods, passing the bill as it is and voting down this amendment and taking this in baby steps, and maybe along the lines after we move this number to 4, which is what the bill says right now, and seeing if we can improve the enforcement of this to allow for a responsible expansion of this, I think is the best way forward. So I would encourage my colleagues to vote against this amendment.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Bradford.
Bill's amendment.
Okay. Councilmember Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. The hand-wringing on this amendment sounds a lot like what we heard when we were looking at the home business bill, that suddenly everybody was going to change what they do and these things would inundate neighborhoods and change their character. And I think we've seen that isn't what happened and is unlikely to happen here as well. I'd like to yield the rest of my time to Councilmember Parker, please.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Councilman Rosenberg, Vice Mayor. Just to a couple of the points that have been brought up, I think we can all go on and on about specific issues that we're having in our districts. I don't think that, what makes our communities great places to live is severe restrictions on who and how can live in them. I've got an individual in my district, one person, owns, I believe, 7 cars. He's got 2 parking spots, and he parks 5 of them on the street. That is entirely lawful. Lots of us wish that weren't the case, but he's able to do it. He keeps them tagged. He keeps them titled. There are always going to be annoyances in neighborhoods, and I don't think that using this sort of blunt instrument of a severe restriction on how many people can live in a dwelling unit, I don't think that is the way that we address every issue in our neighborhoods. I think if you're having traffic issues, if you're having parking issues, work with the departments, work with NDOT, work with MNPD to get those issues addressed, and not try to kind of take this blunt instrument to it of a severe restriction of who and how can live together in this city. Thank you.
Councilmember Hager.
Thank you very much. I don't get up and speak very often, but I've had several complaints in my neighborhoods, and most of the homes in my neighborhood, some of them are 4 to 6 bedroom homes, and I've gotten complaints about several cars being parked in the neighborhood where they have too many people living in a home. So I'm comfortable with what we did the last time with the amendment, which is 4. And the thing is, I agree with Council Lady Johnson that somebody could go in and cut the bedrooms up into 2 or 3 bedrooms where they only have maybe 2. They could cut it up to 4, add more people to that situation. And we had no way of enforcing it. Even with 3, when we had 3 under the ordinance, we had trouble enforcing it because I'd call my codes people about complaints I was getting in my neighborhood, and they were able to satisfy some of them and show that there were more than 3 people living in that home that are unrelated. So I can't support this amendment, but I appreciate Councilman Parker, but I respect him very much, but I can't support this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Withers, somehow I missed you. You're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor. I rise in support of this amendment. I appreciate Councilmember Parker working on this. I think this is a good compromise. When this came through the planning department, I'm going to just reiterate to everyone, please pay attention to text changes, which are tricky, and we're going to talk a little bit about that more in the council later this term, I hope. But we do have a lot of council members that file text amendments. This is one of those, but planning department staff try to do their best research and analysis on it, which they did for this text amendment. It was originally considered for 7. Many of our peer cities, I'm talking about cities, not cities with lots of transit systems. I'm talking about cities that maybe have a smaller urban core, more suburban nature, primarily bus-driven transit system. Cities like Louisville, Charlotte, a lot of those cities that we would really think of as our peers sometimes have much higher limitations on this, if they have any at all. Some of our peer cities have no limitation on how many people can live in a house in their code. We aren't necessarily finding that they are having these Armageddon horror stories that I think some of our colleagues are concerned about from too many cars, even in places where they have less transit than we would all like to have. So I think this is a really good compromise. We do have a lot of our new home construction tends to be larger homes. And so for the 2-bedroom homes, 4 seems like a good number. But for some of those larger homes, it makes more sense to have just one additional person that could stay there. That's not going to be the end of the world. It can at least help more people to be able to live in our neighborhoods. We can certainly deal with cars through the Traffic and Parking Commission and through other kinds of enforcement. But by limiting the number of people that can legally stay in a home, we're not keeping cars out of our neighborhoods, we're keeping people out of our neighborhoods. And so that's why I was in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Right. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I stand in support of this amendment. I was hopeful that the sponsor would go ahead and let us try to shoot 5 up rather than down this week, because I do think 5 is a better number than 4. And so with that, I'm going to support the amendment. I do think that you know, there's been so much dialogue about this, but you know, a colleague said it tonight, and I've said it before too. I think this is more of a boogeyman bill. I think this is mainly happening. And I think that where there's problems, the problems are things that we already are seeing, like cars parked on grass. And we have tools to address the issues that have been brought up in conjunction with this bill. We just need to make sure that we're using those tools. So with that, I don't know that you know, going from 3 to 5, and certainly going from 3 to 4 is going to make much of a difference. As it relates to folks parking on our streets, I've got challenges in my neighborhood, in a number of my neighborhoods in regards to that. But one of the best ways that we can slow cars down on our street, which is the #1 issue that I've got in my neighborhood, is by stacking up cars on the street parked. So the more that we can have cars parked on our streets, the slower cars will go to get around them. And that is a true benefit. That is something that we look at in my district to see how we can slow cars down. So from that perspective, I think we need to look at other consequences from these. We're opening streets up instead of populating them with cars. I don't want to populate them with cars, but I do think that we need to look at how other things are impacted. And just because we see one thing, that doesn't mean that makes it better or right. And so I think that you know, again, 5 is a number that I don't think does enough to help the younger population with affordability. And I think if we really are a body that cares about affordability in housing, and if we're a city of residents that cares about affordable housing, then I think we have to start making decisions that support affordable housing. And I think putting 7 people, allowing as many as 7 unrelated people into a house is something that would have addressed affordable housing more so than what this amendment does with 5. So nevertheless, this is the highest number that I think that we'll be able to get through, and I really hope that you will support this amendment with me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Porterfield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I want to thank the sponsor for working on this. I also want to thank him for being open to tying this to the number of bedrooms. I know that was a concern for some people, and the number of bedrooms, in my opinion, does make more sense. The rationale of 5 people for a 3-bedroom makes sense. Looking at this, I want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. This is saying substitute, Vice Mayor. Did you say this was an amendment? I may be looking at the wrong thing.
This is an amendment to BL 2022-1471.
I may be looking at the wrong thing, Vice Mayor, because when I pull up on when it says, okay, it's an amendment to the substitute ordinance. Okay, I just want to make sure that I was speaking on the right thing. This is saying that you can have 2 to 4 people in a dwelling unit with 2 or fewer bedrooms, if I'm understanding this correctly, which would allow 4 people in a 1-bedroom or 4 people in a studio. And I just want to make sure that I understand that correctly before I vote on this.
Ms. Darby, do you want to answer that? Councilor Parker, do you have the answer to it? It's dealing with 4. There you go. Councilor Parker.
That's the way it's drafted, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for clarity, Councilmember Parker. I could support 4 people in a 2-bedroom makes sense, but 4 people in the studio does not make sense for my area. And I understand that it may make sense in other areas, but for the enforcement that we've already discussed, unfortunately, I cannot support this, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Let me go back to Councilmember Parker for clarification.
So as far as this code change, yes, but I believe that we would fall back on the provisions in Title 16 related to overcrowding if you were to try and put 4 people into a studio or a 1-bedroom. Could someone from the planning table perhaps speak to the 4-in-1 question?
Ms. Milligan.
It's really a codes question. Planning doesn't enforce Title 16, which is a codes provision. But my understanding from conversations with codes is that, yes, those limits in regards to square footage required per person, per bedroom, per living space, those would still be in effect.
Thank you. So just to clarify, this does not get rid of the existing overcrowding provisions in Title 16, which would prevent 4 folks in 1 bedroom. This is specifically changing the definition of family, which is where the other limitation comes into play. We're not changing the underlying overcrowding provisions here.
Okay. Councilmember Porterfield, anything else?
Thank you for coming back to me, Vice Mayor, because I'm still confused. I don't understand because it's saying, I mean, maybe I'm reading this too literally, but I'm going by what it says here. So I'm not understanding how this would not allow 4 people in a studio or 4 people in a 1-bedroom. How many people would it allow for a studio? How many people would it allow for a 1-bedroom? Let me ask it that way, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Parker, you want to go first, and then we'll see if anybody else can add, or Ms. Milligan.
I might ask the planning table to also explain this, but there are other provisions in the code, so in Title 16 and the property standards, that limit, it's the overcrowding provisions. I see that there's another person talking to you, so. So those provisions are still in place. So you might say if those are the floor, this would be the counter. The floor does not, we're not getting rid of the floor by changing this particular definition. Those overcrowding provisions in Title 16 would still prevent that. This doesn't change those.
Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So can you tell us how many people would be allowed in a studio and how many people would be allowed in a 1-bedroom? And I apologize if you just said that and I missed it when you first started talking.
I'm going to go back to Ms. Milligan.
We go to Ms. Milligan for that, please.
So there are 2 different sort of measurements that we're talking about. The overcrowding provisions in Title 16 have to do about square footage. And so if you had a really large 1-bedroom, then the square footage required per person is going to maybe result in 2 people that could be allowed to be in that and it not be considered to be overcrowded. The same thing with a studio. And so when you're talking about the overcrowding provisions, it's about the provision of light, air, water, square footage per person. It's a different measurement as opposed to sort of what we're talking about here is the max. And so I don't know that I can tell you how many people would be allowed in a studio or a 1-bedroom because the overcrowding provisions are based on square footage of living space, square footage of sleeping space, windows, all of these, kitchen square footage. And so it's really very unit specific.
Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm formulating my next question, but thank you, Vice Mayor. That's it for now.
Okay. Councilmember Welsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I rise in support of this amendment. Many of the issues that people are talking about here are not issues that have anything to do with the relationship of the people who are actually living in these dwelling units. it is about people who do not follow the law and who flaunt the law, and that can be people who are related by marriage or by blood who simply aren't going to follow the law. And what we're trying to do here is blame systemic non-enforcement of our laws on the relationship of people living in a particular dwelling unit, and I just think that is short-sighted. And I would hate to see that take away this great opportunity we have to offer up more housing stock for people who need housing in this city. If a married couple had twins in a one-bedroom apartment, they're still allowed to live there because they're a family by blood. And I don't know that even the codes could come in and say you're overcrowded. And we see that happen with people who can't afford larger things. So I just think so many of these issues, we're blaming them on the relationship or non-relationship of people when it's really just people who are not going to follow the law. Relatives can knock down bedroom windows and get more and more people in there and overcrowd someplace just as easily as somebody who is not related. And so systemic non-enforcement is a different issue, and I think we need to address that in a different resolution, and we should support this amendment and this bill so that we can get more housing stock available immediately in Nashville. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Welsh. Councilor Nash.
I rise against the amendment. Gosh, if I got to sleep in a studio, I want the bed next to the stove where it's nice and warm. I like the 4, and I think going forward, we need to. It's almost like the short-term rental problem we got into, where we let it happen all over and we didn't kind of control it. And I think if we want renters or homeowners to be able to have more people in their homes, that we need to set up a system where they have to go to codes and say, here's my parking, here's the square footage I've got, here's the number of bedrooms, and have kind of an application process to expand it to the numbers we're talking about. So I think 4 right now is a nice step forward, and I would ask you to vote against the 5.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I was going to call the question, but I've kind of gotten a little frustrated sitting here. So I want to try and frame this in 2 ways. And first of all, I'm very much in support of the amendment. And so I guess the first lens I would ask people to look through is that of property rights and individual property rights. And as a homeowner, I have the right to use and enjoy my home, and I would hope use it for its intended purposes, which is to use the 3 bedrooms to house people. And if I want to have roommates to pay my mortgage for me, then I should have that right, so long I'm not infringing on the peaceful use of enjoyment of those around me. The number of people living in my house is not going to infringe on the peaceful use and enjoyment of those living around me. Now, if we look at this through a lens of compassion, my God, y'all, no wonder there's a homelessness crisis in this city. Because of someone's status as a family member or not family member, we're talking about how many people can live in a home. And I'm sure every single one of us has had at least one person in our lives that at some point that's going through a rough patch or a hard time, that maybe we let them stay on our couch for a few weeks or a month. Maybe we didn't have an extra bedroom for them, but we let them stay on the couch. Well, are you violating that law then? Should we do that then? Or should we just let them live on the street? The issue that I keep hearing as a problem from people is about cars. Cars. Where have we heard that before? We've been talking about the issue of cars for a long time in this city. Yes, we need mass transit, but we also talk about how cars are running over people because they're going too fast and they're killing people. My neighborhood is a great example. The people across the street from me have more cars that fit in their garage and driveway, and so they park some of them on the street. Sometimes I have guests at my house, or my neighbors have guests, and there's cars in the street, and I'm alluding to something Councilmember Benedict said, is that causes the car to have to, people driving through, to slow down and navigate through the neighborhood. Well, thank goodness, that's a good thing. That's free traffic calming. That's something we don't have to go through the long, drawn-out process. I guess I'm frustrated on why this has become such a big issue, because this is such a simple way to let people use their property as they would like, and for people to be housed, because someone renting a room somewhere is probably not someone who might be able to afford to go rent an apartment somewhere. I had a friend from out of town recently, and I went and toured apartments. Y'all, go tour some apartments, and I know we talk about how high the rent is, but my God, y'all, my God, let people rent a room out, for Pete's sake. Thank you, Mr. Vice.
Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that in response to Council Lady Porterfield's question, that Interim Director Hall was very clear that Section 16 is not something that they enforce from an occupancy perspective. So relying on that as a property.
Councilmember Rosenberg. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are people in the queue who haven't spoken yet. Shouldn't they speak ahead of people speaking for a second time?
Well, I missed some of it, so I went ahead and recognized Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Parker, I know, has spoken on this.
Yeah, I think Councilmember Swope is next.
All right, Councilmember Swope, you're recognized.
Previous question.
All right, so Councilmember Swope has called the previous question. Let's go on the board. We'll try it by voice vote first, and then we'll see. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. All right, so we are on the amendment to BL 2022-1471. This is amendment by Councilmember Parker. It was seconded. Because I'm not sure how the vote's going to go, I think we go on the board. Mr. Clerk, if you could, get the machines ready. We are voting on the amendment by Councilmember Parker to BL 2022-1471. Ready? All right. Mr. Clerk, open up the machines. Again, you're voting on a motion to adopt the amendment. This is not on the bill, it's just on the amendment. Everybody in? No. Councilmember Saguaro. Okay, everybody in? Mr. Clerk, close machines, take the vote. Well, so I understand that we have an affordable housing crisis, but I've also been looking at the emails that have been coming in. Emails that have been coming in are totally against moving up to 5. It's been at 4. I'm going to vote no. I listened to the arguments. I think everybody did a very good job on it. But obviously, if we can't decide at this point, if it's that close, I don't think we're ready to just make that decision. So I'm voting no. Okay. So the amendment fails. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well, I guess I'll concur with you that I don't think we're ready to make a call on this yet, and I will move a 2-meeting deferral.
All right, so the motion is to defer 2 meetings. It's been properly seconded. Discussion on the deferral motion. Councilmember Johnston?
I'd like to table that motion, please.
Councilmember Johnston is moving the deferral motion to the table. So what we've got is a tabling motion by Councilmember Johnston against your motion to defer. Only two people can speak. You can speak and Councilmember Johnston can speak. So Councilmember Johnston goes first and then back to you. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
I'm going to make it quick. I think we've had a long discussion about all of this, and we came as a body. We've talked about multiple amendments, multiple numbers, and we agreed largely that 4 was a number that everyone felt comfortable with going forward countywide. We do have an issue of enforcement. We've got a lot of concerns that what's appropriate in my district or Council Lady Porterfield's district or Councilman Hager's district is very, very different. And so I think moving forward, as I've said multiple times, it is appropriate in baby steps. And so a deferral motion, we're not going to get anywhere else. We've deferred this, I don't know how many times. We deferred it or last meeting or whenever it was 2 meetings ago. I don't know that we're ever going to get anywhere further than what we are with 4. And so I would encourage voting against the deferral motion. Let's put this to bed, move it to 4. We're inching along in the right direction. Please vote against the deferral motion and let's be done with this.
Okay, Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Sorry, vote for the table motion.
You'd vote for the tabling motion. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I agree that we have had a lot of really good discussion and back and forth on this. We also just had a vote that was split 17-17 with 2 abstentions of the members of council that voted. We don't lose anything by taking 2 more meetings to work on this. Gives me the opportunity to continue to work with staff to see if there is an amendment that would be more appropriate that would address some of these issues that have been raised. I think every time that we've looked at this bill, it's gotten better. I think there's no reason to cut off discussion and debate about this bill artificially because we're tired of talking about it. We talked tonight about how we're going to work to get a very difficult problem right. We're going to continue to take our time with it, and we're going to do our best with it. And we don't have an artificial timeline with this bill. It is a Title 17 bill. It can be deferred as many times as is necessary to get it right. And that's what I'm asking colleagues to do, is to defer this again for 2 meetings so we can have one more pass at getting it right. Thank you.
All right, so here's where we are. We are on a motion to table by Councilmember Johnston. If you're for the tabling motion, you would vote aye. If you're against the tabling motion, you would vote no. The tabling motion is against a motion to defer, all right? So, Mr. Clerk, if you would, prepare the machines. Yeah, if you want a table, you'd vote yes. If you don't want a table, you'd vote no. Ready? All right, so you're voting on a motion to table. This is tabling the deferral motion, okay? So if you're with Councilmember Johnston on the tabling motion, you'd vote aye. If you're with Councilmember Parker, you'd vote no. Mr. Clerk, open up the machines. Okay. All votes are in. Mr. Clerk, take the vote. This is my night. Thanks a lot. So as much as I am concerned about trying to figure out the number, and I think that we need more work, I would vote for the deferral motion so we can continue to work through it. Okay? So I would vote aye, and the motion is deferred. Okay? I'm sorry. Then I'm sorry. It's been a long day. So I would vote with Councilmember Parker. I vote no on the tabling motion so that he can go back on his motion to defer. Sorry. All right. So the motion to table fails. Councilmember Parker, you're back on your motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would appreciate colleagues' support on a 2-meeting deferral, and I'll just renew that motion now for a 2-meeting deferral.
All right. So the motion is to defer 2 meetings, properly seconded. Discussion on the motion to defer. I've got people in the queue. Do y'all want to be heard on the motion to defer? Councilmember Porterfield, you're recognized.
I just stand in support of my colleague wanting to defer. Councilmember Parker's worked really hard on this legislation, y'all, and it will have a big impact on our city. We don't have to rush it. We do have the opportunity to keep working on it, and he's worked really hard on it. And I think we need to give him the opportunity to keep working on it so that we can get something that works for the totality of the city. So I stand in support, and I ask my colleagues to support the deferral.
Okay. Anybody else on the deferral motion? Councilor Rosenberg?
If there's nobody else, no. Otherwise, previous question.
I think we're done. Okay. All right. So we're on a motion to defer. Let's try this by voice vote. All those in favor of the motion to defer, and it's 2 meetings. 2 meetings. All those in favor of the motion to defer 2 meetings, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. This one's deferred 2 meetings. Okay. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Parker. Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. There's a lot of activity on this, but thank you for council members for making me vote twice. All right. All right. We are on item number 54. This is a disapproved bill, Bill 2022-1619 by Councilmember Roberts and Pulley. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from R6 to SP zoning for property located at 6111 Cowden Avenue, approximately 215 feet west of Marcia Avenue. It's 0.29 acres. Councilmember Roberts, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning and Zoning met, and we recommended approval, 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting.
All right. Councilmember Roberts, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval with a brief explanation.
All right. Councilmember Roberts is moving for approval of Bill 2022-1619 for passage on 3rd and final reading. Properly seconded. Back to you.
So after a lot of discussion on the floor, and we heard what you asked us to do, so they installed bike racks, which you have a picture on your desk. They are not the ones that are bolted down, but they are now bolted down. The second picture is the landscape buffer that you all asked that they install, and they've started that. The third is we met with NDOT, and they offered to give the right-of-way. As it turns out, the right-of-way had already been dedicated by them, but that is what they did. And so with that, I would ask for your approval.
All right. So Councilmember Roberts has moved for approval of Bill 2022-1619 for passage. Again, properly seconded. I've got people still on the board. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I wanted to commend the sponsor for, quite frankly, going and doing the work that some of us asked her to do. While it's not my favorite zoning still, I do feel like she did what was asked of her from this body, and so I will be supporting this bill tonight. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
Thank you. I know that the sponsor has worked to make some improvements here, but this was something that was disapproved by planning, and several of the neighbors in our joined and our immediate, our joined district line are still against this and have reached out to me, and so I'll be voting against.
All right. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to rise in support of this bill. We have these issues in East Nashville quite frequently where it does make sense, but it might not be supported by policy. And sometimes those are able to get through the Planning Commission with an approval. If people make a good case, sometimes they're not. I think in this case, I'm okay with this, especially given the hard work of the sponsor to kind of meet the asks that we as a body made and that members of the community made. So I'm going to support this.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Rosenberg.
Previous question.
Councilmember Rosenberg has moved the previous question on this one. All in favor of the previous question, say aye. Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. We are on the board because this is a disapproved. It's BL 2022-1619. The motion is by Councilmember Roberts to approve. It's been properly seconded. Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Councilmember Roden, for the music. All right, machines are ready. Mr. Clerk, open up the machines. You're voting on a motion to pass on third reading. It's Bill 2022-1619. Councilmember Cash? Okay, everybody in? Mr. Clerk, close machines, take the vote. Ayes 35, noes 1. It had to have 2/3 vote. It passes on third reading. All right. Next bill up is item number 56, Bill 2023-1708 by Councilmember Toombs. This is an ordinance amendment Title 17 by applying a contextual overlay district to various properties located west of Liberia Street, east of Baptist Rural Center Drive. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Committee reports. Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee recommended approval of the bill as substituted, 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right, back to you, Councilmember Toombs.
I'd like to move the substitute.
Councilmember Toombs has a substitute on this one. It's in your packet of information. Councilmember Toombs has moved the substitute, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the substitute.
It corrects a typo.
Okay. You've heard the explanation. All those in favor of the substitute say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Substitute's adopted. You're on your bill as substituted.
Move for approval as substituted.
Councilmember Toombs moves for approval of as Bill 2023-1708 as substitute for passage on third reading. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, all those in favor of Bill 2023-1708 as substitute for passage on third reading say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We are on item number 59, BL 2023-1711 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by canceling an institutional overlay for various properties west of Gallatin Avenue and north of Douglas Avenue, located within the Nashville Auto Diesel College Institutional Overlay District. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just making sure this is the correct one. We need to, at the request of the current major property owner in the area, we need to defer this to the first meeting in June.
Okay. Is that right? Good. Is that right? This
is the correct one, yes.
Deferred to the first meeting in June. This is item number 59, BL 2023-1711.
That's the correct.
So deferral is to the first meeting in June, properly seconded. Any discussions on the deferral motion? Did we get, Planning and Zoning had a committee report on this one? Councilmember Withers?
We did. The Planning and Zoning Committee recommended approval, 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right. So we've got a motion to defer to the first meeting in June. Okay. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All right. Item number 60, Bill 2023-1714 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 14 by applying a contextual overlay district to various properties along either side of Ashland City Highway and surrounding local streets located north of Hydes Ferry Road, south of Hydesdale Lane, Zone RS15 and SP. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. At the request of the sponsor, the Planning and Zoning Committee recommended a 2-meeting deferral, to the second meeting in April, just to be clear, because we may have other meetings, but we requested a meeting to the deferral to the second
meeting in
April.
In April.
6 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right. Councilmember Toombs.
Move to defer to the second meeting in April with a brief comment.
All right. Got a motion to defer to the second meeting in April, properly seconded. Back to you.
For the folks in my district, this deferral is to give time to have a community meeting to discuss a neighborhood conservation overlay for the same area.
All right. So you've heard the explanation. Are there any questions on the deferral motion? It's deferral to the second meeting in April. This is item number 60, Bill 2023-1714. All those in favor of the deferral motion to the second meeting in April say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We're on item number 61, BL 2023-1715 by Councilmember Hauser. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by amending specific plan on property located at 7300 Charlotte Pike, southwest corner of Charlotte Pike and Old Charlotte Pike, Zone SP. Councilmember Hauser, you're recognized on your bill.
Yes, I'd like a suspension of the rules for late filed amendment.
All right. So Councilmember Hausler has a late filed amendment. Did it go to Councilmember Murphy? Rules Committee, late filed amendment by Councilmember Hausler.
Yes, we still need to have some serious discussion in this body about Rule 13 and the meaning of late filed, but we were okay with this tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councilmember Hausler is moving to suspend the rules to get this late filed amendment before the body tonight, correct?
Yes.
All right, does anybody have any objection about suspension of the rules? No objection. Councilmember Hausler, rules are suspended, you're on your amendment.
Yes, and the amendment was simply cleaning up. It removed the language in reference to percentage of alcohol content so that we would comply properly with the state law.
All right, so you've heard an explanation of the amendment. Councilmember Hausler moves the amendment, properly second. Discussion on the amendment. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment's on. You're on your bill as amended. I
request approval of the bill as amended, please.
Okay, so Councilmember Hausler has moved Bill 2023-1715. Trying to remember if I think I need to read the whole caption. I don't think I've done that yet. Okay, so I'm going to read the whole caption, make sure we've got this. Bill 2023-1715, it's an ordinance to amend Title 17 by amending a specific plan on property located at 7300 Charlotte Pike, southwest corner of Charlotte Pike and Old Charlotte Pike, zoned SP 7.35 acres. Councilmember Hausler is moving Bill 2023-1715 as amended for passage on third and final reading. Properly seconded. Discussion on the bill. Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just wanted to give our committee report. We did not, the amendment did not come before us, but our Planning and Zoning Committee did recommend approval of the bill. 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting.
All right, thank you for doing that. Okay, so we're back to Councilmember Hausler. Her motion to approve Bill 2023-1715 as amended. Again, properly seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the bill as amended would say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All right, we're on item number 62, BL 2023-1717 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying contextual overlay district to various properties located north of Mormon's Arm Road and west of Whites Creek Pike, zoned RS10, RS7.5, and R6. Councilmember Toombs, this is BL 2023-1717. You're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Committee reports, Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee met, and at the request of the sponsor, we recommended a deferral to the second meeting in April.
Okay.
6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting.
All right, Councilmember Toombs.
Move to defer to the second meeting in April with a brief comment.
All right, Councilmember Toombs has moved to defer to the second meeting in April. Properly seconded. Back to you.
This deferral is to allow the neighborhood conservation overlay legislation to go through public hearing and third reading for the same area.
Okay. For the explanation, we're on a deferral motion to the second meeting in April. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion to the second BL 2023-1717 deferred to the second meeting in April, say aye. Opposed, no. This one's deferred to the second meeting in April. We are on item 69 by Councilmember Toombs. It's BL 2023-1724. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from CN and CS to MULA zoning for property located at 1211 Brick Church Pike, northeast corner of Brick Church Pike and Fern Avenue. It's 0.94 acres. Councilmember Toombs, recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This one had a substitute, and we recommended approval of the bill as substituted. 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting.
All right. So, Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
I'd like to move the substitute.
Councilmember Toombs is moving a substitute on BL 2023-1724. Properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the substitute.
Yes, the substitute limits the proposed project to 29 multifamily units.
All right. So you've heard an explanation of the substitute. Any discussion? All those in favor of the substitute say aye. Opposed, no. You've got your substitute on. You're on your bill as substituted.
Move for approval as substituted.
All right, so the motion is to approve BL 2023-1724 as substituted for passage on third and final reading. All those in favor of the motion which is properly seconded. All those in favor of the motion for passage, say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We are on BL 2023-1728. This is item number 73 by Councilmember Hancock, an ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from RS 40, RS 15, and CN to RS 80, zoning for various properties located south of Evergreen Trail and Nawaka Trail on either side of Neely's Bend Road. Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized on your bill.
I need to move a late filed substitute, please.
All right, so let me explain what's happened here. I think there was a substitute ordinance in the package, and then there was a late substitute ordinance. You're moving the late substitute ordinance that went through Rules Committee. Councilmember Murphy? You're good? So this was Councilmember Hancock's late file substitute. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so Councilmember Murphy is moving to suspend, Councilmember Hancock is moving to suspend the rules to get the late file substitute before us today. Any objection to hearing the late file substitute? Seeing none, rules are suspended. You're on your late file substitute.
So the late filed substitute removes 3 additional properties that were late noticed. However, they were postmarked March 3rd to March 8th and just didn't land in Metro offices until March 20th and 21st. They went to the trouble to get them notarized, and I felt like we should go ahead and listen to these constituents.
All right, so Councilmember Hancock is moving the late file substitute, right? Properly seconded. Discussion on the late file substitute. Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the substitute ordinance, the late file substitute ordinance on 1728, say aye. Opposed, no. Okay, so, and then I got to go to committee report. So Councilmember Hancock has moved BL 2023-1728 as substituted. Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning and Zoning recommended approval, 6 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting.
Okay. All right, so the committee report is in. Councilmember Hancock, back to you. You ready to move your bill?
I'd like to move for approval, please.
All right, so Councilmember Hancock is moving BL 2023-1728 as substituted for passage on third and final reading. Properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of BL 2023-1728 as substituted say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That bill passes on third reading. We are now on items number 74 and 75 by Councilmember Taylor. BL 2023-1729 and 1730. 1729, ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from R6 to SP zoning for property located at 1833 Ed Temple Boulevard, northwest corner of Ed Temple Boulevard and Buchanan Street. And the companion bill, BL 2023-1730, ordinance to authorize building material restriction requirements for BL 2023-1729. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized on your 2 bills.
Withdraw both bills.
Both are withdrawn. Okay. Councilor Withers, I'd call for a committee report, but it doesn't matter at this point. Okay. All right. We are on the last bill on the calendar. This is item number 85. All right. This is BL 2022-1631. This is an indefinitely deferred item. It follows under Rule 8. And here's what has to happen. Let me read the caption. It's item 85, BL 2022-1631. Councilmember Stiles, Wells, Toombs, Sepulveda, and others. It's an ordinance to amend Title II of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to create the Nashville Entertainment Commission. Under Rule 8, this bill was deferred indefinitely against the wishes of the sponsor at a recent meeting. So what happens is Rule 8 is triggered. When that happens, the sponsor may submit a written request to the clerk that the matter be reinstated onto the agenda for the next regular meeting for purposes of requesting override of the indefinite deferral. The matter shall appear on the agenda as the last item prior to adjournment. Debate of the requested override shall be limited to the sponsor of the deferred legislation and the chairs of the committee requesting indefinite deferral or a designee thereof. Each speakers shall be limited to 4 minutes each. Majority of the council members voting shall be required to override a committee recommendation of indefinite deferral. If such override is approved, the item shall be placed on the agenda for consideration at the next regular meeting of the council. If such override is disapproved, the clerk will permanently remove the item from the council agenda. So, where we are, we have two speakers that can speak on this. One is Councilmember Stiles speaking, obviously, to get the bill back on the calendar. And Councilmember Roten, Budget and Finance was the committee that voted to defer indefinitely over the wishes of the sponsor. Do you wish to speak or do you wish to defer?
My designee will be Councilmember Syracuse.
Okay, so Councilmember Syracuse will speak on the other side. Councilmember Stiles, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Colleagues, as you know, we've been talking about this for quite a long time, and finally, we have come to a resolution. Councilmember Syracuse and I figured out a way to create the commission where we're both satisfied. This substitute has the same 3 pillars of film and music and diversity, but the music component is the Music City Music Council. The television component is the Film and Television Advisory Board, trying to make amends for everyone and have a good kumbaya moment. This also allows for additional creative industries to have a council created should the commission decide to do that. It also continues to keep the description of what the entertainment industry occupations are, so people are able across all of our industries to see themselves in this bill and know that this is not just film and music, but it is for all creatives across the board. It also has a renaming to make it the Nashville Music, Film, and Entertainment Commission. I'm excited to stand here tonight and say that we have found a way to move forward. I'm not going to take my full 4 minutes. I'm going to yield my time to Councilmember Syracuse. I hope that you will vote to overturn the indefinite deferral. We are finally ready to move forward, and we definitely have the support of our creative communities to do so. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Stiles. Councilmember Syracuse, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Not much more to add to that. My attempt here was to bring us all together. I think we have indeed received a lot of emails regarding support for 1630. And the one pillar of this was intended to be representative of the film and TV community who have wanted the one entity specific for film and TV. This is a way of keeping the sponsor's intent of having a cohesive commission, but yet still have 2 councils underneath that are focused on their respective areas. So this is a way of achieving that. It is a way of perhaps scaling it up as this grows, and hopefully the industry leaders on each council will be able to put strong specific governance and strategic planning on both sides. And I have every faith in the new commissioners that they will do that. So it's not perfect, but I'm not letting the enemy of the good be whatever that saying is. Move approval. Thank you.
All right, so you've heard the 2 speakers. There is what this is a motion to put this back on the calendar, basically. And so it requires a majority of the council members voting shall be required to override a committee recommendation of indefinite deferral. So the motion, I believe, would be to put it back on the calendar. It's properly seconded. So we're going to try this by voice vote. All those in favor of putting this bill back on the calendar for consideration will come on at the next meeting. Say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay. So it's pretty clear that the majority has it, and so this bill will be put on the next calendar. Okay. Need a motion to adjourn? Got a motion to adjourn, properly seconded. Any discussion? Remember, we're meeting tomorrow at 6:30. Planning and Zoning Committee meets at 4:30. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn say aye. Opposed, no. Stand adjourned.
And
so the council has concluded about a 3-hour meeting. They got a little bit of a late start tonight. Also had some time tonight to hear some entertainment that was brought to the council that they all enjoyed. But the council has completed its business. It was about a 43-page long agenda, about 85 items. Let's talk about what they just did on third reading tonight. A couple of interesting bills. One that was given final approval, one that is still pending that. For some time, the council had been trying to come up with a bill, some kind of common ground between two competing bills. One would have set up Nashville Entertainment Commission, and another one that had some dealing with aspects of the city's movie, TV, and other kind of related businesses. They were not able to find a common ground tonight. It appeared they did. Both those bills had been put on indefinite deferral. There was an appeal to remove that off one of the bills, BL 2023-1631. Since the council understands there is a meeting of the minds about this, they did move to rescind the indefinite deferral. Bill will be put back on the second reading, and when it comes up in 2 weeks, there's a substitute that will hopefully everybody's happy with, and it'll be put back then and a chance to vote on that on second reading and perhaps third reading after that. So that particular matter is behind us. Another bill that the council has been fighting on quite a bit that was on third reading tonight has still not been resolved. This was a bill to amend the definitions of dwelling unit and family, more particularly how many unrelated people could live in a dwelling unit. The current law had been 3. There was some move to take it up to 4. This particular bill set it at 3 based on the number of bedrooms. It could go up as many as 5 depending on the number of bedrooms. A lot of council members were still not happy with that. After quite a bit of debate, the council voted on whether to add the amendment to take it up to 5, between 3 and 5. That failed. It actually was a tie vote at 18-18. The vice mayor voted no on that, so that particular amendment failed. Then there was a motion by the sponsor, Councilman Parker, to take a 2-meeting deferral. That again was contested. There was a tabling motion about doing that, obviously in an effort to actually defeat the bill rather than to defer it. That went on for more debate. Again, there was a tabling motion was voted on, and that also was a tie vote. In this case, the vice mayor voted no again, but in that case, that kept the deferral in order, and that's what happened. The council has deferred that matter for 2 meetings. Council spent a good bit of the night tonight debating what they're going to also talk about tomorrow night. This is the first meeting the council has had since the General Assembly approved and Governor Lee quickly signed into law a bill that would cut this 40-member body it would cut it in half to no more than 20 members. There's a lawsuit about this that Metro Legal Department has put in. That won't be heard until April the 5th at the earliest. There's going to be an effort at that point to put in an injunction that would either stop the entire process or at least slow down the bill. At this point, the council had a lot of debate tonight about what to move forward. There was some concern about how they're going to inform the Planning Commission, if they're going to meet the law, which is going to, right now still has it in effect, taking along with the August election for the council. They still debated about what to do about that, whether they should ask for all 20 to be district council members, whether they make it 14 and 3, 16 and 4, 15 and 5. And at this point, they're not clear whether the Planning Commission could or should do that on their own, or whether that's something the council has to instruct them on. That's probably something they'll debate more at their special meeting tomorrow night, which will be here at 6:30. Council also elsewhere on its agenda tonight approved RS 2023-2037 and appropriated $1 million for a grant to the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. This money has already been appropriated in the budget this year. Funds will be used for community safety grants to nonprofits. There was some concern about this particular grant being administered by the Urban League. There were people unhappy about the contract. The contract was redrafted. Everybody at that point seemed to be fairly happy with the redraft, although there was at least one council member who felt like we haven't been doing a very good job on these contracts, so we may hear something about that, not about this one, but others. The council went ahead and deferred that. Council also improved a resolution tonight that would extend the mechanism for existing tree law, including grants to several nonprofits. There was an effort to try to completely redraw the tree canopy and the law that would have further modified to maintain the city's tree canopy. That was withdrawn at the last meeting because there was opposition from some development groups, particularly up on Capitol Hill. So again, they took that action to keep the current program going forward. Council also accepted a $15,000 grant from the Titans Foundation. The grant would provide equipment, resources, and upgrades to the computer lab at the Luby Community Center. There was nothing on the agenda tonight concerning the Titans' $2.1 billion roofed stadium. That's set to be considered at the next council regular meeting, which is set on April the 4th. Council also approved a $5 million federal grant to aid with the community actually an application for a $5 million grant to aid in community outreach, planning, and design for the East Bank Boulevard and the Greenway project. The Metro would need to match that, so that bill was probably, I think it was approved tonight, but the council probably won't move any forward. They're not moving forward on the other related projects that have something to do with the Titans project. The council approved all the memorializing resolutions that were there to take care of that. There was a second reading bill tonight, BL 2023-1740. It would amend the local law to make it unlawful to charge firearms within the urban services district and several other requirements of that. The council wanted to defer that 3 meetings. Obviously, it used the word guns. It did also say anything would be allowed in terms of discharge of firearms, expressly authorized or permitted by state law, but I think the council wants to look at that a little more carefully because of the hot-button nature of firearms and their discharge within the area. The council also deferred establishing a public dashboard on how the city is addressing the issue of affordable housing. That includes a number of different things to measure that. The council wants, I think, some more time to look at that one as well, although I think there's general support for that. The council is now in recess until tomorrow night. They'll have that special meeting we talked about earlier at 6:30 to determine how the council is going to proceed in trying to meet the state law with deadlines that would be very tough to meet to implement the new state law that cuts the Metro Council size down from 40 to 20. By the way, if the council does not get this done by around the 1st of May, then we'll probably be going into not having a council meeting, a council election this summer, and this council will stay in office for another year. There could be some legal issues about that as well, but that's kind of what we're facing right now. We'll see how that debate goes further when they get to that meeting tomorrow night. The next council meeting after that will be on April the 4th. Again, we're talking about the Titan Stadium being the major thing that will be on that agenda. So that's it for tonight's council meeting. I'm Pat Nolan, and good night from the council chambers. Tonight's meeting of the Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County Council has been coming to you live from the council chambers at the historic Metro Courthouse. It's been a public affairs presentation of the Metro Nashville Network.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.